Cole, I'm going to tell you the truth. My head is a little back and forth today because I sat on a seesaw all morning trying to figure out which team we wanted to dunk on right out of the gate here at 3 o'clock on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson.
Why would you do that? Why would you dunk on somebody?
Did you watch the games?
What games?
This weekend?
Games? I quit sports.
South Carolina. You know, it's funny. I got a text from Will Pelagic, ladies and gentlemen, a while ago, asking if you were okay. He was doing a wellness check on Cole Bryson for your Dallas Cowboys.
Will was?
Yeah.
No way.
He wanted to make sure you were okay.
That's funny. No, I'm not, but continue.
Clemson lost badly. South Carolina lost ugly. But South Carolina's struggles, while frustrating, are at least somewhat understandable. You lost a lot. Maybe the preseason hype around Lenora Sellers, the idea that that guy is as amazing as he is. And God, even in a loss, they're saying he's going to be the number one quarterback drafted this year. Nobody is calling for Shane Beamer's job today. But let me be absolutely clear and direct and in no uncertain terms. When you're a head football coach and you spend 13 minutes berating your fans, berating the media members that cover you, when you talk about legacy and resume, and then proceed to lay an egg and get beat 34-21 in a game you were uncompetitive in, Dabo Sweeney, you deserve every single puff of smoke that you've gotten since Saturday's game ended. Every single bit of it, Cole. There's a proverb that it's been morphed a little bit over the years, but it's been simplified to pride cometh before the fall. And Dabo Sweeney is incredibly guilty of being a prideful individual. And if you want to be a prideful individual, that's fine, but you better back it up. You better back up that pride.
Yeah.
When you get your ass kicked the way that Clemson did, to the point where the boo birds are coming out in Death Valley, something that rarely ever happens, you deserve every single bit of what you're getting this weekend.
Yeah, the criticism, Diesel, is warranted. It does go back to Tuesday's press conference, right? It's not just about what happened Saturday. It's not, because if it were, it would be a blip on the radar. It would be a singular thing that we're talking about. However, it's not. This is something that we're now having a conversation about for days on end, for weeks on end, and it started, a couple of years ago. While Diesel, here's what's so fascinating about this conversation. While there are a lot of Clemson fans today and yesterday and Saturday who are shocked, I'm not going to be the I told you so guy, but I am going to be the guy that says this is what people like me and others have been seeing coming down the tracks for years now. And you remember, Diesel, very vividly, we've had people on Twitter that we've had a block because they refuse to believe that we are being objective over the course of the past 2 years, right? Trying to be objective and at the same time criticize Dabo Sweeney and Clemson. People have come at us for it, and you probably know exactly who I'm talking about, the one that always pops up and always has something to say. I finally blocked this person a couple of months ago. People are now seeing why. I'm not saying like we were ahead of the curve, but people are now seeing why we were critical a year ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So I say that to say this, Diesel. I'm not really surprised that we're having this conversation. I want to be very clear. Am I surprised Clemson's 1-3? Of course I am. I wouldn't ever sit here and say, well, I'm shocked. I had them going 1-3. No, I'm surprised they're 1-3. Am I surprised that this has gotten this bad this quick? Not necessarily, because this is something, Diesel, that you and I and others have seen coming for a couple of years now.
Look, this downfall is predictable because it happens to just about every powerful brand in college football, unless you're Alabama under Nick Saban, where you build up an amazing program, there's something special in the water. You keep your guys around for as long as possible. Clemson and Dabo, they did an amazing job there for a while, hanging on to coordinators.
Sure.
For as long as they possibly, longer than most other programs would, right? Brent Venables arguably should have gotten a head coaching job 2 to 3 years before he actually did, but he was happy at Clemson, and they were able to hang on to him.
By the way, he was there from 2012 to 2021, a long time.
That's unheard of.
To your point.
When you've got an elite level defensive coordinator like that. Then Dabo sunk into the role of, let me hire people that I have trust in, that I have faith in, players that played for me in the past, guys that have been on my staff for a long time. I want to give them opportunities. And look, that's commendable. I understand why you do it, but it just didn't work. Just flat out didn't work. You got to give Dabo credit then for making the decision to hire someone who at the time seemed like an elite level coordinator in Garrett Riley.
Yeah.
Great hire. We were over the moon for Clemson.
Yep.
When that hire was announced, we thought, they're going to get back to their ways where they're putting up 75 points a game. They're going to sandpaper teams on a week in, week out basis. Defense fell off. He goes and hires Tom Allen, who was amazing at Penn State. We thought, everything seems to be going down the right path. So I don't want to make it seem like Dabo has made awful decision after awful decision. I think he made some short-sighted decisions in hiring buddies, some nepotism hires for a little while, and then said, okay, that experiment didn't work. Given opportunities to guys that have been on my staff for a while, that didn't work. So let me bring in somebody from the outside for some help. And then all of a sudden, they just forget how to football. And it's like that meme. You just, what's going on with these players?
From where they were to where they are now, Diesel, is astounding, and not in a good way, right? I think, look, and we can attack this conversation from a million different angles. And Tolos, we want to hear from you as well. If you're a Clemson fan at 844-326-3663. So many ways to attack what happened Saturday, where Clemson is now. But Diesel, ultimately, the hires that have worked out, the hires that haven't worked out, ultimately, the players that aren't performing, the players that are performing, it's the buck stops with one person. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are very adamant about saying that Dabo Swinney should never have to be told to leave Clemson, that they're never fire Dabo, right? Hashtag never fire Dabo. They're on that team, and that's perfectly fine. But, Diesel, whether you blame it on Cade or the players, the offensive line, or Tom Allen, or Garrett Riley, or the guy up there doing the PA announcing, or the popcorn machine, like, the buck stops with Dabo Swinney, period.
I want to be careful in this comparison, okay? And compare strictly the on-field results. Think about other coaches that have been given that lifetime contract. We're never going to send you along your way. We're never going to put pressure on you for anything performance related. And tell me how it's gone over the last few years of their tenure. What happened the last couple of years of Bobby Bowden's tenure at Florida State? They started to fall off.
Yeah.
What happened the last 10 years of Joe Paterno's tenure at Penn State? They fell off in a major way. I genuinely believe that all of these coaches need some level of pressure on them. And I asked that question. I don't remember who I even asked the question of. Maybe it was Grayson Mann 2 weeks ago. And I had somebody text in on the text line, 844 fan phone.
Yeah.
And say, Diesel, you're an idiot. There's no pressure on Dabo Swinney. Why would you even ask a question like that? This is what happens when there's no pressure whatsoever to continue adapting, continue developing, and continue doing what it takes to get better. I had a reel on our YouTube channel about a year ago, Cole, where I said the difference between Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban is that Dabo Swinney is unwilling to change. Nick Saban was unwilling to lose.
Yep.
That's the difference between the two. Dabo Swinney has still not changed.
Well, here's the problem. The problem is now the hole's too deep out of to dig out of this season, right? So when you look at the totality of it, do I believe on this? What day is it? The 22nd day of September that Dabo Swinney should be fired? No, I don't believe that. Do I think things have gotten really bad at Clemson? I do believe that. Do I believe, Diesel, that Dabo Swinney in his tenure at Clemson has had the benefit of not having to address consequences that led him to where he is now? If that makes sense, yes, I do believe that. I do believe that the term slippery slope is evident here. And you say, well, Cole, they still won an ACC championship. They did win an ACC championship last season. And they also backdoored their way into an ACC championship that they had no business being in, thanks to Syracuse, right? So, look, Clemson's been successful. But going back to my opening point, Diesel, I'm not like super shocked that we're having this conversation, because I've been trying to tell my Clemson buddies for years now that don't want to listen to me, that only listen to the other station in the upstate, the one that tells them everything's going to be okay. That's the one they listen to because they don't want to be told the truth. I've been saying this for several years now, but evidently the truth hurts too much to listen to people who are critical and people who are on Twitter that are coming at you and I over the past year and a half, Diesel, in the short time we've been doing this show, the people who know better than we do. Ultimately, the buck stops with Dabo Swinney. They're 1-3. The season is completely over. It's done. It's a wash. I don't care if you went out. I don't care if you went out. We can still win 8 games. That's fine. But the season's done. You're not accomplishing any of your goals. You didn't win the opener. You didn't win the ACC opener. You didn't win the conference. You still, I guess, can beat South Carolina. Maybe that's one of the goals you can still accomplish this season.
When your best case scenario is still the worst season you've had under your current head coach, that's a problem.
Yeah, this is the first time since 2004.
Yeah.
First time since 2004 that Clemson's been 1-3. And that was Tommy Bowden, Charlie Whitehurst, right? And they had very, very high expectations in 2004, Diesel. And here we are.
I think a lot of people just want Dabo to back off of the preachy, I'm right, look at my resume, look at everything I've done, winning is hard.
It's just the things that he says.
Just nobody's buying it anymore.
Right.
As a matter of fact, here's some audio, Cole, of Paul Feinbaum. And then we know what we're getting. We're talking about Paul Feinbaum, right?
Yeah.
He is the mouth of the South for a reason. Here is Paul Feinbaum suggesting some pretty heavy measures when it comes to Dabo.
Of the people that could leave coaching and going to TV, he would be very coveted. Or find some place to go. There will be a lot of openings, and you can sit when you introduce Dabo Swinney. It's not bad. It's not a bad look. I mean, Jimbo Fisher has done pretty well with leaning on one national championship. Dabo has a much better resume, so I think it's I think it's over at Clemson. Let's quit trying to sugarcoat it, Matt. Sometimes it's very difficult to get it back when you've lost it. He lost it. He got it back. Now he's lost it again, and he's lost it badly. And it's time for him to go.
It's time for Dabo to go. That's still a bit strong. It's Paul Feinbaum, right? And we know that Paul Feinbaum is the mouthpiece of the SEC, and he says the populist things that SEC fans want to hear. And he has bagged on Clemson and Dabo for years. So it's not surprising that this would be Paul Feinbaum's take. But I mean, is he that wrong?
So he's not wrong in the things that he says about the context of the situation. I do believe it's done. I believe it's over. I believe this dynasty that Dabo Swinney built, I believe it's all came crashing down. Can Clemson still be good and win games? Yeah, I think they can. But I do believe the dynasty that Dabo Swinney built has come to an end. Do I think that deserves him being fired today? No, I don't. I don't believe Dabo Swinney should be fired today. However, my problem, Diesel, going back to something you just said a minute ago, that I've always had an issue with in the past couple of years, and I grew up a Clemson fan, remember that. I'm so sick of the things that come out of his mouth. I love Dabo as a person. I love what he stands for. I stand for the same things. I have a lot of the same beliefs and morals that Dabo Swinney does. But Diesel, I cannot stand to see a guy get up there and for what you said, 13 minutes like you did on Tuesday, go on, and then proceed a few days later to go out and get your butt whooped 34-21 by Syracuse. That's where I have issue. He's not backing up what he says now. You know, a couple of years ago in 2023, it was the whole thing about buying stock. If we're a stock, you better get it now while it's cheap, right? And did you hear what Nick Saban said about Dabo Swinney on College Game Day?
I think I heard this.
This is good right here.
Yeah, he created it. I mean, he created the success, very similar to the way we created a standard and an expectation in Alabama. But then you got to keep climbing that mountain because people expect you to live up to it. And you're only as good as your last play. You're only as good as your last game. When you're in competition and you got to look at the next challenge as an opportunity to continue to grow and develop. And, you know, Dabo needs to look at what he needs to do in his program to make his program continually be successful. Do you have to change the portal? Do you have to change name, image, and likeness? The game has changed. You need to change with it. Otherwise, you're not going to put yourself in the same position other people are and having a chance to be successful.
So that's Nick Saban.
The standard has to become, what do we have to do to beat our competition? Not what do we have to do to feel good about how we play? And that feels like that's what Dabo Swinney's standard has been.
I love what he said. You're only as good as your last play. And I think for all the people out there that have stood by Dabo and continue to do so, and that have come at you and I, and the people who have said that we're just trying to get clicks and all this stuff, right? Because it's happened.
Where are those people today?
Well, my thing is with them, Diesel, I think they have failed to understand that what Nick Saban just said is true, and that you are as good as your last play. You're only as good as your last play. And Clemson's last play hasn't been good. Not talking about Syracuse, but I'm talking about just in the past year and a half to 2 years, to losing to Duke on Labor Day night, right? To losing to Louisville last season, to Cade Klubnik continuing to make mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. This has been coming down the train tracks for several years now. And Diesel, I think finally, people are starting to realize that it's not that we were trying to get clicks or be critical or tell you not to listen to that other station that pumps you up all the time and tells you everything's going to be okay. We're just calling it like we see it. And that's ultimately where I stand. You can obviously pull for your team. You're supposed to. But the one thing that I've always said, and I think a lot of people, a lot of our listeners, including T-Swizzle, and a lot of our listeners, Tolos, they do a good job of this. Be able to be objective. Be able to be objective. And right now, if you're a Clemson fan, there is plenty to be objective about.
I need to see humility and fire from Dabo in his press conference today. He's got a press conference here coming up just about 2 hours and 15 minutes or so. We're going to be bringing you audio from that live as it's happening because, is that not breaking news? Anything that's going to come out of his mouth at this press conference. But before that press conference starts, I would advise Dabo Swinney to go back and watch the movie Pulp Fiction. Have you ever seen Pulp Fiction?
I have not. No.
Never seen Pulp Fiction. Great movie.
No, I have not.
There's a particular scene where the gangster, Marcellus Wallace, is trying to pay off the boxer, Butch, to throw the fight. And he kind of has this thought in the back of his mind that Butch is not going to throw the fight, that pride is going to get to him. Right before that fight happens, pride's going to get to him. And he's going to say, you know what? I'm going to take Marcellus's money. I'm going to win the fight, and I'm going to bolt out of town, which is exactly what he tried to do. Spoilers, by the way, but the movie's 30 years. Time to catch up. He's giving him a speech, and he tells him, and I'm gonna morph this just a little bit to apply to Dabo. I'm Marcellus Wallace. Before this press conference, you're going to feel a little sting. That's pride messing with you. Well, forget pride. It can't help. It only hurts. Dabo, forget your pride going into this press conference. I don't want to hear about ACC championships. I don't want to hear about playoff appearances. I don't want to hear about any of that. All I want to hear is contrition. All I want to hear is fire, that we're going to fix this. Dr. Dre had a line that says, y'all are going to mess around and turn me back to the old me. That's what this press conference needs to be for Dabo Swinney.
And to be very clear, this is not the Tuesday press conference because Kane's asked about it. This is not really a press conference. This is the typical Sunday Zoom call that coaches do on Sundays But because Clemson had a bye, it was moved from yesterday to today. It's been scheduled like this for several days. It's not because they lost or anything like that. It's not the typical Tuesday press conference where it's in person. This is a webinar where it's media only, right? You have to have a passcode to get in, and Dabo will be speaking in this Zoom call is what it is. So we'll try our best to have it for you, Tolos, live right here on the Fan Upstate, or what we can bring to you in accordance to the regulations of this Zoom presser. But I'll say one more thing before we run to a break, Diesel. And I said this on Twitter over the weekend. I want to be very, very clear. While I do support the ideology that Dabo Swinney needs to adapt, he needs to get in the portal, he needs to be more active with NIL and being aggressive like Ohio State was last year. I'm not saying he has to go full-fledged. I support that, but I also want to read the tweet for those of you that didn't see it that I put out on Sunday, yesterday, Diesel, and I said on Twitter at @TheColeBryson, you'll see the narrative a lot more this week that Dabo needs to adapt and get with the times if he wants to win. While I don't disagree with that sentiment, here's my issue. On paper, Clemson has better players than Georgia Tech and Syracuse. Way better players than Troy, right? Clemson's not getting out-talented. They're getting out-coached. They're getting out-schemed. They're getting out-worked. It's showing on the field every single week. If you want Dabo to be more active in the portal, fine, but just because you have better players on paper doesn't mean you'll win the games, and 2025 has shown that. My argument, my point behind that tweet, Diesel, is very simple. Dabo Swinney's got good players now. And Dabo Swinney told us a couple of months ago that a lot of the portal guys aren't good enough to come to Clemson. You remember he said that?
I do remember that.
So my whole point is, to heck with the portal. If you can't develop and coach the guys that you have on your roster, the portal ain't going to help. You got to be able to coach and develop the guys you have on the roster. And Dabo Swinney and that staff is not coaching and not developing the guys they have on the roster, period.
How is it that you have, on paper, theoretically, elite level coaches at your three most important positions, head coach, DC, OC, and you still have this many weeks into the season problems with effort, problems with fundamentals? How does that happen? How does that happen?
Yeah.
I mean, we're putting it all on Dabo, and I get it. The buck does stop with Dabo.
It does.
But at the same time, how do you have 4- and 5-star guys all over the field who are just simply getting outworked by Syracuse, by Georgia Tech, by Troy, and by LSU?
Couple of texts real quick before we run off the break. Texter says, should Christopher Vecina get to start at North Carolina? At a minimum, Tristan Smith and Jeremiah Alexander have to see the field more. Sad that 3 transfers care more about the Paul than a number of those that have been in the program 2 to 3 years. That comes from Southern Rivals Football Show. RJ says, Dabo has too many former players on his staff, none of whom had any coaching experience before they got hired. They got brought into a Power 4 job and are learning on the fly. Dabo needs to fire them and his sons, who are also on the staff. That comes from RJ. Real quick, text from the 524. I love that Nick Saban is all high on his horse about what it takes to win today when he quit because he didn't want to navigate the current football landscape. Well, while that may be true, Nick Saban saw it best to get out. Nick Saban did not want to ruin his legacy. And I will say, to defend Nick Saban, Texter, Nick Saban, the longevity that he coached, Nick Saban had to adapt several times. Did he have to adapt to the portal and NIL? No. But you look at the time that he spent in college football, Nick Saban's offenses adapted over the course of, he was never going to be a spread guy. Then he hired Lane Kiffin. So let's not act like Nick Saban didn't adapt. He did adapt, but he also recognized when to get out, Diesel, and I think that's the main difference.
It's true. He's also old AF. So
yeah, that's true. He's a little bit older.
It's not like he hit the eject button at 55 years old, okay?
Let's get to the Gamecocks. Gamecocks are next. What happened? The current state, while Clemson may be down bad, the Gamecocks deserve, Diesel, to your point, to be dunked on as well. It is not really good right now in Columbia. Where have things gone wrong? We'll get to that next. Well, I had a friend of mine tell me earlier today that lives in Lexington. He's a big Tiger fan, a big Clemson fan, and he said, Cole, the only thing that makes what's happening to us right now okay is the fact that South Carolina has lost 2 games in a row. So not a lot of trash talking going on because neither team, Diesel, doing too hot to start 2025 compared to preseason expectations. And now we shift to the Gamecocks, where South Carolina dropped another one over the weekend, unable to get it done. You and I both knew that Mizzou would present some challenges for the Gamecocks, as they did. How surprised were you to see the outcome, the Gamecocks lose by 9 over the weekend?
First of all, it's very rude of Clemson to not let South Carolina enjoy a Clemson loss. That's 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
The Clemson is lost early. South Carolina fans thought they were going to win the game, and they thought they were going to have essentially 2 wins on the same Saturday. And then, they went out and laid an egg. Yeah. I'm not surprised at all. I'm pretty sure, Cole, I'd have to grab my Phil Steele magazine there, but I'm pretty sure I predicted South Carolina would lose on the road to Missouri this weekend before the season even started. There's just something about Eli Drinkwitz led teams that South Carolina can't beat. And I don't know what it is. First of all, Missouri deserves a tremendous amount of credit. God, what an environment they had in that building. And man, that new end zone facility is going to be amazing when it's officially done. But I wasn't sure if Missouri was ever going to be an SEC environment. It is. It is. That was amazing. And South Carolina shot themselves in the foot so many times in so many different ways. And Lenora Sellers just forgot that you don't have to throw the ball 25 yards every time you let go of it. You can throw it off to the flat. You can throw an intermediate 8-yard route. But he just forgot that you can do that.
You know, we can break this game down a million different ways, and Shane Beamer and Todd Ellis and 107.5 The Game in Columbia, all of them can break this game down as many times as they want or as many ways as they want, Diesel, but it's really simple. It's really simple. You can't have -9 rushing yards in an SEC football game and expect to win. Like, enough said. In this segment, let's get to the Daily Wires, because that's like we can attack Mike Shula, we can attack Lenora Sellers, the diva, whatever. In the SEC, heck, in college football nowadays, you can't have -9 rushing yards and expect to win the football game. Yeah. Now, whose fault is that? Is that on the offensive line? Is that on Beamer for not having quality enough running backs? Is that on Mike Shula? You can go at it different angles, but the bottom line is, just like we talked about with Dabo Sweeney in the last segment, the buck stops with Shane Beamer, and he'll be the first one to tell you, hey, I'm responsible for this. We went on the road in the SEC, and we had -9 rushing yards. That cannot happen ever and expect to win. How you only lost by 9, I don't know, but the fact that South Carolina was in the game, leading at half, I thought at the halftime break, when the Gamecocks went to halftime, I thought they were going to win. I felt good about the first half of play Saturday night. However, you can't run the football. You're one-dimensional. Lenora Sellers wasn't great. You talked about it, Diesel, his decision-making, 18 of 28. He did have 302 yards. He had to have 302 yards because they couldn't pick up any on the ground, and 2 touchdowns. So not a bad night, not a great night for Lenora's, but the fact of the matter is, you just don't have the weapons. You don't have the weapons, and you can't go on the road and not run the football literally.
Well, you don't have the offensive line to make up for not really having elite weapons at running back. And I'm not trying to impugn Razul Faison. I'm not trying to impugn Oscar Attaway. I think the world of them. I think they're good running backs, but they are not Rocket Sanders. Neither one of them is Rocket Sanders. You do not have a guy like him that can make up for having a weak offensive line, that is good enough to bounce it to the outside when they're getting pass rush right up the middle, that's able to bounce off of arm tackles from linemen. They don't have that kind of running back. And look, Sellers could have had some more yards through the air. There were many opportunities. There are several times, Cole, where those long passes, which is all he wanted to throw, were dropped. There was a first half Mazio Bennett play that he should have made the catch. And who knows? Maybe those things kind of snowball into momentum, and drops are like the yips. They're contagious for some reason. Somebody drops the ball and somebody else drops the ball and somebody else drops the ball.
Phil Shifley on the Facebook stream says, ask Tyler to give Shane Beamer a call too. I like that. Chad Husky says, nobody realistically thought Carolina would beat Mizzou. They're a very good team, and Carolina has some serious issues, sort of like Clemson, JB says, what's so bad about it is they were still in the game down 6 with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Says if you fix the problems, you can win. And you know what? To JB's point, that's I think, Diesel, I think if you're a Gamecock fan today, that's what's more frustrating than anything is the fact that some of these games, you're 2-2, you lost to Vandy and Mizzou, but especially this Mizzou game, you had a chance to be 3-1. You had a chance to be 3-1. If you could just fix some of these issues, you'd be a really good football team. Going into the season, we all thought there was a lot of hype on Lenora Sellers, and rightfully so. We didn't realize that South Carolina's run game would be abysmal. We didn't realize that Oscar Attaway and Matt Fuller and Fajon and Brian Lowe and these guys would be just like, high school running backs trying to run behind the middle school offensive line. The run game has been a huge issue. And guess what? Defensively, South Carolina couldn't tackle Saturday night. I don't know if you watched or not, Gamecock fans, but defensively, South Carolina couldn't tackle to save their life. It just couldn't.
Bad.
So, look, there are a lot of areas to blame, but ultimately, I look right now at the interior of that offense and that offensive line and that run game and think, boy, if you can't run the football against Missouri, what are you going to do when you go on the road at LSU in a couple of weeks? What are you going to do when you're playing Oklahoma and Brent Venables, for crying out loud, Diesel? What are you going to do when you're playing Alabama? Like, if you can't run the ball this weekend against Mizzou, you're in some serious trouble, and that's where my biggest concern is for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, and they've got to figure out ways to finish drives. How many times did we see South Carolina get inside of Missouri territory and then just sputter out? We saw it several times. You got to be able to finish drives on the road in the SEC. That's why you lose games. And you said it, it should be both encouraging and frustrating to know that South Carolina made as many mistakes as they did, and they were still in it late. But when the penalties were as high as they were, when the drop passes were as high as they were, when the missed tackles were as high as they were, that's how you lose games in this conference where every week is a tough opponent.
Here's what I tweeted out over the weekend that should give some Gamecock fans some serious concern. The Gamecocks, Diesel, South Carolina sent out their season stats shortly after the game, right? And I was looking through them late Saturday night, just curious more than anything, right? And I was looking through and I said, oh, no, that's not good. Oh, no, that's not good. Oh, that's not good. Ooh, then you start to see some of these glaring issues. So, for example, Diesel, let me pull up my Twitter at the Cole Bryson. By the way, this is Shane Beamer's third 0-2 start in SEC play. Just throwing that out there.
Ouch.
Through 4 games, South Carolina has rushed for 321 yards through 4 games while allowing 608 rushing yards. Not good. By the way, the Gamecocks are averaging 2.6 yards per rush this year. Like, that is abysmal. Yeah. They're averaging 2.6 yards per rush. South Carolina, to make things worse, Diesel, I also tweeted this out. South Carolina's averaging 70.5 yards of penalties per game this season. Somebody tweeted back and said, well, surely they're not averaging more penalty yards than they are rushing yards. No, they're not, but it's close. 80.25 rushing yards is the average per game, and again, 70.5 penalties per game. South
98
Carolina
yards of penalties in this game.
That's what I was. Yeah, how many? 98 yards.
14 penalties for 98 yards.
Way too many penalties. Way too many. And a texter just brought that up. There's no doubt. Twisted Whisker brought that up. Way too many penalties. You couldn't run the football. There's glaring issues. And you know, it's not like the offensive line just had a couple of drops like a receiver can, where you have confidence next week these guys will make the catches and you'll be good to go. This is an issue that I don't know that you can put Elmer's glue on, that I don't know that you can put duct tape on. This is an issue that I think might derail your entire season, because you play in the SEC. If you played in another conference, the one that Clemson plays in, you could do some things offensively, Diesel, to kind of hide some of the areas where you're really weak at the offensive line. However, LSU is going to expose you in a couple of weeks. You're not going to be able to hide your deficiencies in the SEC. You have coming up Kentucky, LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, A&M. Good luck trying to hide deficiencies against those teams.
Another phenomenal question. And just thinking back on the game, in my mind, I was like, I think Nick Harbor had a pretty decent game, didn't he? No, not even close. He made it. He made a big catch. He made it at 33-yard catch, but he still only totaled 45 receiving yards. This is a 5-star. This is a guy you spent a lot of money on. Talk about a lack of return on investment. How much money did South Carolina invest in Nick Harbor to get 45 yards a game out of him?
Yeah.
I mean, he is a track star. He's supposed to have elite speed. How is it that a defensive back running sideways and looking over his shoulder, not knowing if the ball is coming to him, is staying stride for stride with Nick freaking Harbor?
No, you're right. And I'll say this, the last thing before we run off to a break, Diesel, I said this a couple of weeks ago as well. What people have to understand about offensive line play is it is like the biggest ripple effect you've ever seen. It is like the one rock on the side of the hill that gives way, that allows the entire side of the hill to come crumbling down. When your offensive line's not good, it makes everything else on that offense bad. You can still have good receivers. You can still have a good quarterback. South Carolina does. They've got good receivers. They've got a good quarterback. I think they've got some decent running backs. But that offensive line, coupled with how bad Mike Shula's been, and by the way, it's been really, really bad. Mike Shula, here's a stat for you, took over as offensive coordinator. Since then, 17 points against Illinois, 17 against Virginia Tech, 17 against South Carolina State, 7 against Vandy, and 20 against Mizzou. One of the worst run games right now in college football. Mike Shula is not the answer, obviously.
So what last year, was it Lenoris or was it Dowell?
What do you mean?
Like who gets the credit for that offense?
Oh, who gets the credit? Yeah, I think probably both. I'd say a little bit of both, right?
Okay, let's take our whip around the sports world, see what else is going on out there in the very next segment. We call it our Daily Wires. Cole, we have so many Daily Wires to get to. Let's go lightning round. Our Daily Wires buzz, the buzz happening around the sports world. Monday Night Football, just 4 hours from right now. Lions and Ravens. Ravens favored by 4.5.
I think this could be an exceptional game tonight. I'm really looking forward to it.
The Carolina Panthers apparently didn't show up for the game, and a whole new crop of people put on their jerseys and faced the Atlanta Falcons yesterday. Cole beat them 30-0. And who was that Carolina Panthers team?
Just absolutely waxed them, man. I was shocked. I didn't know, to your point, I didn't know who that Panthers team was.
Speaking of waxing them, the Braves swept the Tigers over the weekend. They're 73-83 on the season. They'll host the Nationals tonight at 7:10 with Chris Sale on the bump. Arizona Cardinals running back James Conner suffered a season-ending right ankle injury in their loss yesterday to the 49ers. Preliminary tests revealed that Chargers running back Najee Harris suffered an Achilles injury during yesterday's win against the Broncos. So, unfortunately, he's going to be out for a while. Giants coach Brian Dabo understood the boos during the team's home opener Sunday night against the Chiefs. He said he would have booed them too.
Yeah, you know what? We talked about this before the season started. And by the way, Tolos, we'll have another Daily Wires Part 2 coming up at 4:45. 2 segments of Daily Wires today, just in case you missed any of these, because to Diesel's point, we have so many. The Giants are eventually going to fire Brian Daboll. The Giants are eventually going to feel the pressure to start Jackson Dart. Which happens first? I would assume Jackson gets to start here pretty soon. But ultimately, I don't know that Jackson Dart is the answer to saving Brian Daboll.
Baker Mayfield maybe channeling his inner Michael Jordan, finding any reason for motivation. He talked about in his post-game press conference about the Jets defensive coordinator having cut him back in the day.
Carolina, Steve Wilks.
Yeah, Steve Wilks.
Steve Wilks cut him. He said, I loved it. He was part of the reason they cut me, and that's what makes people love Baker Mayfield. He's just a baller. He wants to win. He holds things. He takes things personal, like you said about Michael. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Unfortunately, Cole, the best quarterback in the building on Saturday down at Clemson is going to be out for the rest of the season. Syracuse quarterback Steve Angeli will miss the remainder of the season after tearing his Achilles in the win against Clemson. And by the way, Cole, I was listening for the first half, listening to the audio broadcast. Can they please just figure out one pronunciation of the quarterback's name and stick to it?
Oh, you don't like the 3 or 4 different.
It was a localized broadcast that called him Angeli, Angeli, Angela. Come on, guys.
They went everywhere
pick
with
one
it
and stick with it.
That's terrible to hear, because Diesel, not only was he great Saturday, he was leading the country. We talked about this last week. He was leading the country in passing yards. This guy was playing his butt off. And I'm not saying that he would have won the Heisman Trophy, but man, this is one of those that you just hate to see, man.
Yeah, and there's no there's no promise that he'll ever get it back to that level if he has to take that much time off. Class of 2027 safety Angelo Smith, the brother of Ohio State star wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, has committed to the Buckeyes. He is 5'10", 165 pounds. He is at Florida's Chaminade Madonna College Prep School. In addition to Ohio State, he held offers from Miami, Oklahoma State, Georgia State, and Toledo. Oh, man, that's to talk about a wide range of schools that are offering somebody. An SEC officiating crew failed to identify a hideout tactic on Oklahoma's second quarter touchdown in the 11th ranked Sooners Week 4 win over Auburn. The conference acknowledged it, Cole. Oklahoma led 10-3 after quarterback John Mateer connected with Isaiah Sategna for a 24-yard touchdown. Before the snap, Sategna had walked towards the sideline, feigning a substitution, but he remained on the field, streaked down the sideline for a wide-open touchdown.
So you're saying officials, even with all this new replay technology, can still make mistakes?
It feels like if something like that happens, they should say, you know what? Everything that's happened between that snap and now didn't happen. Let's take it back to that play.
Reverse.
That's a touchdown. That's a scoring play.
Yeah, it is.
That's a scoring play. You can't just take it off the board and say, just play it as it lies.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
You should take it back to where it was. Like nothing after that ever happened. Cole, this one's a sad one here. We had the news about 2 weeks ago that UCF offensive line coach and former App State head coach Sean Clark had undergone some sort of a medical emergency We also heard news that his condition was improving. Well, sadly, his condition took a turn for the worse, and Sean Clark passed away last night at the age of 50.
That's awful.
So I just feel awful for his family.
No doubt. You hate to hear stuff like that. But again, Tolos, we have a lot more Daily Wires to get to. Part 2 coming up at 4:45. We'll also try to capture what Dabo Swinney says at 5:30 in his weekly teleconference that was supposed to happen on Sunday. Because of the bye week, it was scheduled for today. It's nothing like to be panicked about or, tried to be concerned about. It was scheduled like this all along, so we'll see. But a loaded show. Also, Grayson Mann coming up in the next hour as well. However, let's go around the NFL and see what, how in the world the Carolina Panthers somehow, some way pulled off a 30-0 win over the Falcons and so many other fantastic games, and want to hear how your NFL team did this weekend as well, Tolos. Well, I don't know if it's just me, Diesel, but maybe it's because our in-state teams suck so bad, but I have absolutely salivated over the first 3 weeks of the NFL season. And I mean, more than normal, sat down and watched every game, even if I was doing something else, making sure that I'm watching the games that I'm interested in. Look, there's a lot of good teams in the NFL this year. There's a lot of bad teams. Mine, one of them. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But the Carolina Panthers is where we're going to start, because through the NFL, Diesel, through these first few weeks of the National Football League, there's been some crazy good storylines. And the Carolina Panthers are a storyline that's, how do you figure this out? They go 0-2 to start the year. Pretty much anybody who would pick a game would all have agreed, would have all agreed that Michael Penix and the Falcons are going to beat the Panthers on Sunday. That's a given, right?
Yeah, I know. I said it on these airways. Not a chance. Not a chance that the Panthers get this win.
And I'll do you one better. If I told you Diesel Bryce Young on Friday's show, if I said to you, Bryce Young's not going to throw a touchdown pass, you'd probably say, oh, boy. Falcons win big, right?
Here we go again.
Here we go. However, that was not the case as we go around the NFL in this very segment. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryce. And the Carolina Panthers, 30-0 over the Atlanta Falcons. Diesel, what team is this?
You know how Rob likes to refer to Bryce Young by his initials, BY?
Yeah.
I'm going to start referring to him as FGR, field goal range.
Okay. Field goal. Tell me what. Tell me why.
Have you not watched his 2.5 seasons or 2.25 seasons in the NFL? Field goal range, FGR from now on.
So that's what you're saying Bryce Young's good for.
Yeah.
Getting in the field goal range.
Great between the 20s.
So here's how this game becomes interesting. Bryce Young wasn't great yesterday. In fact, we can make it out all we want. I don't know if Rob's going to, or any other pundit out there is going to make it out like Bryce Young's back.
Oh, Rob's been waiting for the I told you so. He's waiting for Bryce to have a great game.
But he wasn't good yesterday.
He's been blowing smoke for how long? Said, just give it time. He's going to get better. I promise you. And then as soon as he has a good game, see, I told you so. I told you that you guys were out on him too soon.
But in the 30-0 win, Bryce Young had 121 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
That's an improvement.
Well, that's true. Though he took care of the football.
He only got sacked once.
But Bryce Young didn't do anything that was like, oh, wow. I mean, he made some good throws. I mean, Ted McMillan had some decent receptions. He had 3 of 48, averaged 16 reception, which is good. Tommy Trimble was okay.
Have you seen this dance move? I don't know if you call it dance move, maybe not the right word, but it's the air walking thing where people can walk where it looks like they're sort of floating. It's weird. I got to find it and show it to you, or you could search for it and find it. It's not like Michael Jackson moonwalking,
okay,
but there's a way to contort your body to make it look like you're just walking on air. And that is what Ted McMillan looked like he was doing in that one grab where he elevates and somehow seems like he elevates a second time on one grab. It was incredible. Ted McMillan, I think, will go down as a really, really good receiver for this franchise for years.
Hopefully so. I still do believe, in the NFL, while Bryce Young didn't play incredibly great yesterday, the reality of it is, in the NFL, you will take a win however you can get it. There are so many elite talents across the National Football League that it doesn't matter if your quarterback throws 5 touchdowns or 0, Diesel. You'll take a win any way you can, especially with it being at home, especially with it being the season opener at home, right? The first time that the fan base got to see their team this season, it was a 30-0 win. So you'll take it. I'm not here to throw water on the fire that was, the Carolina Panthers and say, oh, well, Bryce Young wasn't all that good. He just had 121 yards and no touchdowns. You shouldn't be excited. You should be excited. You got to win. And more importantly, Diesel, the Panthers defense was really good yesterday. I don't know if you know this or not, Tolos. It had been a while since the Carolina Panthers pitched a shutout. They won 30-0 yesterday. And it was November 22nd, 2020, the last time the Panthers shut out a team, and they shut out the Detroit Lions 20-0 that day. So you're talking about 5 seasons.
I don't think they would shut out the Detroit Lions 20-0.
No,
now.
I don't think so. But 5 seasons of no shutouts in this defense. Like, I know the story is going to be you won over Atlanta and the offense put up 30. That's fine. But to me, the story is the defense, because Diesel, if this is a big if Carolina's defense can continue to play at this level that they did yesterday, you don't have to have Bryce Young being an MVP caliber quarterback. You just have to have him manage the game, take care of the football, and things will fall into place as they did Sunday. I'm not bashing Bryce Young by any means. He didn't play great. I'm not throwing water on the fire, right? I'm not trying to be that guy to rain down on your parade, Diesel. I'm just saying the defense is the story here. What their defense did yesterday was really impressive. Give
me a defense that can hold opponents to 17 points, and Bryce Young could win them a lot of games.
I think so. So we'll start. That's where you have to start there. I mean, you just can't start locally anywhere else. What a big win for the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. Also around the NFL, did you see, Diesel, the Green Bay Packers that I said were a Super Bowl team? Did you see what they did
I did see the final. I didn't watch the game, but I saw the final.
How do you explain Cleveland, who had not won a game, defeating the Green Bay Packers 13-10? You scored 10 points. You scored 1 touchdown.
Well, they're excited about that new stadium. They're like, hey, we're getting some fresh digs.
Joe Flacco was 21 of 36, 142, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Not really great. And you still somehow managed to win the game. Green Bay couldn't stop the run. They allowed Quinshot Junkins to pretty much do whatever he wanted to. And Cleveland's defense was really good. Jordan Love wasn't great yesterday. Green Bay couldn't run the football. Josh Jacobs only had 30 yards. He was their leading rusher yesterday. So, Diesel, let me just say this. I think what I love more than anything about the NFL is the unknown. You just truly don't know. I say this all the time. The NFL is a week-to-week league. It is truly a week-to-week league. A lot of associations, a lot of these sports that we watch are year-to-year leagues, right? You can have no, not in the NFL. It is a week-to-week league, and Green Bay, for as good as they've been, losing that game, it just makes you scratch your head a little bit.
It's incredible. It is a sport where it is the cream of the crop. The best of the best are there. They're all professionals, believe it or not, even though sometimes it makes you scratch your head. Why did you do what you did? These are the best players from across college football. And, and obviously you do play-by-play for high school football. You live in that world, and you can see how one player can take over a game in high school football. One elite quarterback, one elite wide receiver or running back can just dominate a game and essentially win it almost single-handedly. In college football, it takes more guys than just one. In NFL, it takes everybody, but everybody's supposedly good.
Supposedly. Now, I'll be very clear. I still think Green Bay's going to be okay. You have bad games, and yesterday you had a bad game. It was just really surprising to see. Now, I want to ask the question to the Tolos out there as well as you, Diesel. This is not what I thought I'd be asking on the 22nd of September, but here we are. Are the Indianapolis Daniel Jones-led Colts the best team in the NFL right now?
I love the change of scenery improvement guy.
Oh my gosh.
Coaching, scenery, getting away from a fan base, getting away from just this funk and bad vibes. I love to see it. It might be one of my favorite things on this planet.
Who would have thought, though, that Daniel Jones would come in and literally, he's so efficient. He's not really turning the ball over. He was 18 of 25, only 7 incompletions, 228 yards, throwing, getting involved. He's just to your point about
or is he Ryan Fitzpatrick, who had a great couple of games and a great season?
Well, hopefully not for their sake, right? JB, by the way, says, no, the Colts are not the best team, but they are a lot better. They are a lot better. And just for the record, JB, I don't think they're the best team in football either, but they are 3-0. They are beating teams 41-20. They've got a quarterback, and they've got a run game, by the way, which matters, right? You've got a run game that helps your quarterback in every facet of the game. I'm just impressed. And what do we talk about this all the time, Diesel, in the NFL, and when it comes to quarterback, whether it be Trevor Lawrence or anybody, situation matters. And the situation that Daniel Jones was in New York, it's a lot different, evidently, than the situation he's in now in Indianapolis. So situation matters. No real surprise that the Bengals are not a good football team, Diesel, without Joe Burrow, right? Without those guys that they expect to have week in and week out. I said during the preseason that this was the worst defense in the NFL. It was really bad on Sunday. Jake Browning, poor guy. I mean, I feel bad for him, but it doesn't matter who plays quarterback for Cincinnati. Their defense is atrocious, and I mean just atrocious. The biggest story of the day, though, the Philadelphia Eagles, Diesel, and the way that they won the football game over the Rams. I'll have audio at 6 o'clock in the audio blitz. But Jordan Davis, this guy, 300-plus pounds, blocked or scoops up the blocked field goal and runs it back. Eagles win 33-26 and now 3-0, Diesel. That's kind of what good teams do. They find different ways every week to win games. And talking about the best teams in the NFL, it still looks like the Eagles are right there in the conversation.
I love any team that can do that, Cole, because they build that confidence of if we need a defensive stop, we can get it. If we need a special team stop, we can get it. If we need offense, we can get it. And then all of those things somehow just find a way. It's like watching, planets orbiting the sun. Every now and again, they're going to align. And all of a sudden, your offense, defense, special teams, defensive takeaways, they all sort of line up. And you just say, oh, my God, I didn't know this was possible for this team.
And to your point, on a day where Saquon Barkley is pretty much ineffective, 18 of 46 with no touchdowns, Diesel, only averaging 2.6 yards a handoff, to still be able to win that game against a good Rams team, to your point, it says a lot. It says a lot about the culture. It says a lot about the coaching staff, the wherewithal that the players have, because you find ways to win games in the NFL. That's kind of the secret sauce, right? Going back to the Panthers, find a way. You don't have to look pretty all the time. Just find a way.
Look at this hating-ass hater on the text line. He says, just like Sam Donald, Daniel Jones will be Daniel Jones again.
Sam Donald.
Eventually,
who is Sam Donald?
Sam Donald. Come on, man. You enjoy it while it lasts. It may not last forever, but enjoy it. Roll with it for a little while, would you?
RJ says the Packers also made a dumb decision to start Zach Tom at right tackle with a torn oblique muscle versus Myles Garrett. Tom went down after the first offensive snap of the game. Yeah, RJ, to your point, probably not the best idea there to do that. I'll tell you the game that I enjoyed watching more than any other game yesterday, and Matt Kraft will come out of hiding here. Broncos-Chargers was a phenomenal football game. And I mean phenomenal. Justin Herbert was great. He threw the ball a little bit too much in my mind. I didn't think they tried to rely on the run as much as they should have. Diesel, I do think, right now the record doesn't say so because they're 1-2. But I do think eventually Sean Payton and Bo Nix will get this thing figured out in Denver. I think Denver's still a contender in the division, even though they're 1-2.
Could have been a contender.
I think they're still going to be a good football team. However, you look at who they lost to yesterday, the 3-0 Harbaugh-led Chargers. This team, in my mind, going back to finding ways to win, they're not sexy every Sunday. They're not putting up 100 points every Sunday. But when you look at a team like the Chargers, and I promise I'm not just doing this because Matt Kraft's a Chargers fan, when you talk about teams that are Super Bowl contenders, you talk about teams that can find ways to win, different ways to win every week. And the way that offense is constructed, Diesel, I look at the Chargers as a legitimate contender to win it all this year. I really do.
Some other strange games out there, man. This Texans-Jaguars game was odd. Houston, who seemed to be on this upward trajectory as a franchise, they get beat by the Jaguars by a Trevor Lawrence that was 50% on his passes.
And they're
He
0-3 now, by the way.
They're 0-3.
That, like, their season's done.
Trevor had a rating of 56.5
wasn't
and
good.
still won the game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You had some other really strange ones. How about Sam Darnold only throwing the ball 18 times for 218 yards, yet the Seattle team put up 44 points?
Deconstructed the New Orleans Saints. And I mean, just humiliated them. It was embarrassing.
Speaking of humiliation,
don't you do it. Don't you do it.
Yes, we are. Talk about this elephant in the room?
Yes, we'll talk about the elephant. I'm officially done, checked out, and I'm not exaggerating. On the 22nd day of September, I'm here to tell you that I could care less what happens to the Cowboys season.
The Braves stink. The Cowboys stink. Clemson stinks.
It's bad. I spent
my
Sunday
right now.
I spent my Sunday in the woods because I was just like, okay, I got to get away. All my teams stink. Look.
So you just go out in the woods, get in a deer stand, and watch football on your phone?
I did. It was great. I watched the Chargers-Broncos game, and it was a great Sunday afternoon, other than the Cowboys loss. And we'll get to – so here we are, 31-14 to a guy who paints his fingernails, right? CeeDee Lamb's hurt. He's going to be out several weeks. The season's – it's done. It's over. You only could muster 14 against Chicago, who was, by the way, winless Diesel. Matt Eberflus yesterday should have been left in Chicago, the Cowboys DC, the former Bear. He sucks. He's terrible. He's no good. Get him out. I think it's a terrible hire. Excuse me. And now I'm looking at this Brian Schottenheimer hire, who, by the way, I think Brian Schottenheimer is not a bad offensive coordinator, but I just don't know how long of a leash Brian Schottenheimer now has as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. That was embarrassing yesterday, Diesel. There's no other way to put it. That was embarrassing. You made 2 weeks in a row Russell Wilson and Caleb Williams look like Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Dallas's defense is atrocious. Trayvon Diggs has forgotten how to play football. The offensive line yesterday wasn't great for Dallas.
Yeah, but think about all those draft picks that are coming.
Yeah, I mean, wow, that's going to be nice. But here I am, early or mid to late September, already checked out, Diesel, like the season's done. And I'll tell you why. You're 1-2. You're 1-2, and you play the Packers on Sunday Night Football. It's not getting any easier. It's not getting any better. Embarrassing's the right word there. And then, by the way, the Kansas City Chiefs finally squeaking out a win over the New York Giants. I know they won 22-9, but if you watch that game, it wasn't pretty. Nothing about that game was pretty last night. Mahomes was okay. Wasn't a bad night. But, boy, you look at this Kansas City team that's struggling to beat teams like New York, and you think, boy, what's happened to this organization all of a sudden?
Well, here's a plan to keep you Cowboys fans engaged. Expand the playoffs. To keep Clemson fans engaged, though, they're going to have to expand it to 128 because that's the only way the Clemson
See, the
Tigers
problem is usually I am happy during the season, and then the playoffs come. That's where I get obviously upset when the Cowboys choke every year. Now they're just starting early.
Speaking of Clemson, on the other side of the break, Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com. Where we'd like to be as we bring on our very next guest, Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com, we'd love to be breaking down big plays that Clemson had in a win or something exciting that happened, but there's not a whole lot of that to talk about. So I just want to get personal with Grayson Mann for a second, if I can, as we start this interview. How you holding up, Grayson?
I'm great. I woke up under a roof. The sun rose today.
Now you're feeling Dabo-isms, okay? Come on now.
All right.
Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com joins us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Grayson, is this the most needed bye week in college football right now? I mean, God, Clemson, nothing is clicking right for this team offensively, defensively, penalties, coaching, all of it seems to be just failing all at the same time. What's going on in this locker room? Are they still together? They talk about togetherness a lot, but it's obviously easy to be together when things are going well.
Yeah, it's like when you take that big test that you thought you were going to ace and you see a big fat 65 on there and you're like, man,
yeah,
I need a few weeks before the next unit so I can get ready. Got to get that grade back up. But certainly a very jarring start to the season. To just kind of answer your question about the locker room, I was able to chat with a few prospects that were brought into town for this weekend, and they said that the locker room was very connected. It really, the display of caring was something that they noted. Whether you agree with that being displayed on the field is another question entirely, but it's a mess right now. And a lot of people that I've talked to for the last several days have said that it might be a necessary mess. It's one of those moments for Clemson where last several years, and you're getting it personal, so I might monologue here for a second, but Clemson's sort of been this car that you see driving down the highway, and you might notice some duct tape on like a door or a mirror, and you're thinking, probably need to just let that car die at some point. Maybe take it in, trade it for whatever money you can get, and start over. For Clemson, feels like that's been the kind of program since Trevor Lawrence. Is they've added a couple pieces like Matt Luke. That's tape on the left side mirror. Tom Allen's tape on the door to make sure it's shut while the car is driving. I think on Syracuse, the engine finally died. And it's time for Dabo Swinney to go into the shop and see if he can buy a new one. I think the word that Clemson fans might have to accept now is it's time for a rebuild here in Clemson.
We're joined by Grayson Mann right here on the Fan Upstate after the 34-21 loss to Syracuse. The Tigers now 1-3 on the season. Grayson, you talk about rebuild. You talk about the engine failing. And obviously you, I, and others have heard from fans over the weekend and how disappointed they are. When you talk about not meeting expectations, that's one thing. When you talk about not meeting the standard, that's another thing. And a lot of times repercussions are felt because the standard is not met. Clemson's 1-3 this season. Still have plenty of games left. Do you expect any fallout, any repercussions internally because of this 1-3 start?
Dabo Swinney's never been one to make a dramatic change, but I do know it's been a pretty nuclear week and a half inside the building. And so there's been a lot of, I think tension is the right word, of this is just not steered off the course that I think anyone had expected. We've sat here in August and confidently said this could be a playoff team on paper. And so It's jarring now that we're sitting here. It's September 22nd and the season's over, essentially, is the way you look at it, is because Clemson's not going, man, can't wait to get to the Pop-Tarts Bowl. That would be a great year. If they're going to be, some of the projections I read this morning could put them in the Fenway Bowl. That's not exactly the standard that Clemson has set. And so obviously there's a lot of disappointment. But this also just could be who Clemson is. They're 8-7 in their last 15 Power 4 games. A lot of the peak of this decade, if you want to kind of erase the COVID year, was that last semblance of having an elite talent at quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, elite talent across the board. The peak of the last 4 years have been a 14-point playoff loss to Texas. So you talk about meeting standards. And I think we were all asking, if not this year, when? They're not close to what potentially could be that sort of mountaintop that we all envisioned them potentially trying to reach this year. So a lot of answers. We're going to speak to Dabo Swinney here in an hour. It's going to be really fascinating to see the tenor of how he sort of addresses this moving forward. He's got 2 weeks to basically digest this and see if they can reset it and get something positive in the building against North Carolina.
So, Grayson, to go back to your metaphor there about a car and buying a new car, in your mind, what does that mean? Because, in theory, Tom Allen is an elite defensive coordinator. We've seen him be elite before. In theory, Garrett Riley is an elite offensive coordinator. In theory, Dabo Swinney is an elite head coach who knows more football and has forgotten more football than we'll ever know. But at the end of the day, the players are the gas in the engine. And if the players aren't getting it done, were these guys just all overhyped and over-evaluated? Are we legitimately looking at a roster of 2 and 3 stars, or is there just like something that's not clicking? There's a clogged line somewhere.
I think it's a loaded question. There's a lot that needs to be fixed, and I don't think it was ever as simple as adding Tom Allen or adding a Garrett Riley. I think what we've seen through these seasons is the talent's certainly not there. I think that you have to sort of look at how Clemson recruits, and I do think this 26 class that they're bringing in has the potential to be special. There's a lot of elite talent, particularly on the line of scrimmage, that they're going to be bringing in. Can they retain them to December? That's going to be the question. I think it's got to start there. I know that the portal is sort of the trigger word for Clemson, and that's usually the point about Dabo Swinney doesn't understand NIL. I think that's been way overblown because Swinney did have to pay pretty expensive dollars to keep this roster that we all kind of expected. You bring in a guy like TJ Parker back, a guy like Peter Woods back, a third-year starter in Cade Klubnik. That's an expensive trio. Add Antonio Williams, add all the other pieces, because other schools are calling, knocking down the door. So Swinney did the right thing in theory with his roster, but I think it's kind of the reset was going to be 2026 of, okay, Clemson does this in 2025. What now? I think you got to start by North Carolina. You got to start getting data points for 26 because I think Diesel, if you can gather data for the next 8 games on a Christopher Vizina, a Gideon Davidson, the guys that you kind of have waiting in the wings, a Braden Jacobs, Easton, I know Easton Ware's out, but sort of those 2025 linemen that Matt Luke was able to bring in. Got to see what works and got to see what doesn't work and try to move forward. I don't view it as Clemson's all of a sudden going to bring in 3 stars and that's the best they can do. I think there's a philosophy shift, maybe a shift in staff. I don't like calling for jobs, but something's got to give, and I don't think it's one simple move. I think there's got to be several.
Grayson, do you think Dabo will speak on this question that I'm going to frame to you? You can answer the question and also give your thoughts on if you think Dabo would ever answer it. But I know Dabo is not part of the media, but at ACC kickoff, to your point, it was the general consensus that Clemson was, the favorite in the conference, that everybody was picking them. The Josh Pates of the world, everybody was picking them to win the national championship. We thought so as well. It wasn't like it was just Clemson media. The Clemson media was certainly leading the charge, and everybody felt like Clemson was going to be a player, a contender. And then a couple of, speed bumps. LSU, you didn't look great against Troy. Trying to keep the faith per se, and things just to our conversation points we've already talked about haven't gone that way. What do you think this year shows fans just in terms of preseason expectations in this new era of college football may not be what they once were?
Yeah, it's an interesting question of Swinney had called it rat poison a few weeks ago. And really it's a team that you can try to adjudicate it one way or the other, but it's a group that isn't used to this type of expectation. A Klubnik entered in 2022 when they had just lost 3 games for the first time in ages. This 2023 class had just entered, and it's sort of this tumultuous time where 3-2 losses. I mean, Clemson's had multiple losses each year since 2021 or 2020, even with back to the Notre Dame and Ohio State losses, but one of those came in the postseason. I mean, look at Florida State last year, Cole. I looked at it this morning for a story we're writing for TigerNet that'll drop, I think, tomorrow. Is Clemson's eerily similar to that 2024 Florida State team that was this preseason gem. A lot of returning starters, Mike Norvell paying top dollar to keep these guys in town. You didn't feel great about the quarterback, but you felt DJ could maybe steer the ship at least on course, and it completely fell off the rails, and some of those numbers are eerily scary for Clemson fans. So preseason expectations are one thing, and then execution on the field is another. A lot of the AP poll numbers, it's fascinating to go back and look. A lot of the AP number ones, they change hands plenty of times. The AP poll top 25 in August looks very different to the AP poll top 25 in January, just because teams may have injuries that result in deterioration of a season. There just may not be the right mix. So it's certainly a lesson this year in tempering expectations, or maybe kind of just looking at it through the weeds a little bit quicker. And I think we've discovered this with Clemson.
Grayson, you mentioned that press conference is not a press conference with Dabo here in about an hour. Given what happened last week at his regular press conference and that 13-minute diatribe, does Dabo Swinney owe Clemson fans an apology for last week's press conference, for treating fans like they're children, for scolding them, for scolding the media, creating narratives, all this stuff we've heard for the last 2 weeks? I mean, I'm not asking if you think we'll get it, but do you think Clemson fans deserve a Dabo Swinney mea culpa?
I think we got it on Saturday, if we're being completely honest. And it wasn't framed as he said it outright. He was sort of saying it without saying it, but there was that real visceral quote. And I thought Dabo, to his credit, I know Tuesday was sort of his last attempt at throwing the kitchen sink to try to rally the team. And so that was sort of him talking to the team through us, through that epic rant. Was really epic rant in that kind of way. Saturday was the first time that I've really seen that vulnerability, and someone that really it took a lot out of them on Saturday. I mean, the ESPN clip of him with Avion Terrell in tears went pretty viral, and he just talked about sort of the weight of responsibility that he feels. And he said he's hurting for the community and hurting for the fans. He says he knows the fans care, and that's what makes these results so disappointing. So I don't think Swinney would apologize for anything he says. That's never really in his style. But I think we really got it, Diesel, on Saturday. And so it's just kind of refresh. He's going to flush it, and we'll be moving on to the bye week. And I'm sure we'll ask plenty of questions about what he's seen on tape, and just sort of, I'd love to ask him how he characterized sort of the toughness on the line of scrimmage and how that has gone on both sides of the ball, because effort's been a big question mark with this team. So we got a lot of answers, and hopefully Swinney will answer them here in about 50 minutes.
Grayson, going back to that, because we talked to you on Monday of last week. The presser was Tuesday. We hadn't talked to you since until today. We obviously know what happened on Saturday with Syracuse. You said talking to his team through the media. This is kind of a two-part question. Number one, do you believe that's what Dabo was trying to do? And if so, what does his past success – this is just a curiosity question.
Sure.
Trying to play devil's advocate. What does his past success at this program have to do with getting the team fired up and motivated to go beat Syracuse? How does that correlate?
I think it's sort of just defending the program that you've chosen to go to in that sense. And I really felt like a fired up Dabo, because the question was, what play would he like back against Georgia Tech? Yeah. And then he kind of went off the rails. But I think it was sort of the same thing with Brian Kelly at LSU when he was asked what's wrong with the offense. And he sort of goes on this tangent about, I think they do it in different ways, but I'm sure there was a meeting Tuesday or Wednesday, and he's like, guys, I got your back. This program, you guys are going to be responsible for getting us out of this hole. We're going to make this run. It's going to be something incredible. And you know why? Because we've done this before. We have rallied before. And so Swinney's just reciting those talking points to say to the guys that are sitting there looking for answers, there's something and there's proof in the pudding there. So that's what I think he mainly was doing. Cole, to answer your question, I think it's really fascinating that Tuesday presser was then followed up by Saturday, where it looked like the team was out of gas from play one, and Syracuse did just about whatever they wanted. And it really could have been a lot more had Steve Angeli not gone down with the Achilles injury. Was just awful to see, because he looked like he was primed for a great season with that Syracuse offense. So we'll see how that develops on that front. But yeah, that Swinney's presser paired with that Syracuse loss, obviously lots of national attention. Not a lot of people would be watching a 1-2 football team if it wasn't Clemson slapped on the logo based on how they've played. And it all kind of came crashing down. And that's why I kind of said the engine died on Saturday. That was sort of their last attempt. And a 34-21 loss that was a lot more lopsided than the score would indicate. That's just kind of the nail in the coffin.
Find him on Twitter at Gray_Mann21. That's man with 2 N's. I asked this question of Matt Smith of Sports Talk Media Network on Friday. How long, if Cade continues to play mediocre football, does Dabo Swinney stick with Cade Klubnik. We know that loyalty is a huge thing of who Dabo is, but we've also seen him bench multiple starters in a row for their backups. Kelly for DJ for Cade. Are we headed for number 3 here?
I think that it should be. The decision should have been made a long time ago, if we're being completely honest here. But the problem is he's one of your highest paid guys on the university, not just on the football team. So there's that aspect of the donor part of it, the politics that comes with NIL of benching your millionaire quarterback after 4 games. Essentially is waving the white flag on the season, even though it's over based on the results that we've gotten. I keep saying this, and I know Sweeney's not one to make this kind of move, but I do think it would be in the program's best interest to see what Christopher Vezina can give you in the next 8 games. Provide yourself some data. I think fans will feel a lot better in December once the season's over of, I know how this could look against LSU in Baton Rouge versus what the heck are we going to talk about for 6 months is how is this going to look for game 1, first career start for Christopher Vezina, a guy that hasn't necessarily, I guess, the reputation or the development has not been the most pleasant, hasn't developed the greatest. So you get 8 games, and at the very least you have an answer there. Because a lot of NFL teams, they'll start their rookie. Take a look at Michael Penix right now for the Falcons. 3 starts at the end of the year, closes it out, and now 6 starts in, it does not look good. And so I think if you're a Clemson fan, you love some data.
Based on what you just said.
Yeah.
What do you think are the odds now that Dabo Swinney goes to the portal for a quarterback going into next season? Vezina's been around for a while. If you don't feel good about him, I mean, are you willing to go through that for another season without at least bringing in someone?
I think the option, the likelihood increases. And now, again, this could predicate on, let's say Vezina starts against Boston College, and for 7 games, he's dynamite. He's on fire. He can't be stopped. Then at that point, Sweeney's probably going to go, yeah, 17's our guy. We're going to roll with him. But on the other hand, if you don't start him and you've seen enough data in practice to where you're not very confident, I've always said this for years. This was even before the wheels fell off on this season, that Sweeney it would be in his best interest to bring in a portal quarterback, even if it's not some bona fide superstar. Just bring in some more competition. I like what Tate Reynolds can bring to Clemson. I just don't think it's going to be ready game 1 for 2026. I like what Kareem Hewlett could bring, but that's 2027. So there's just some options, and it's not like we could tape this over a car, for example, and see how it goes. That's going to lead you to another disastrous season. So I think Clemson needs some data, and I think the fans need it too.
Grayson, as we let you run, Dabo said on Tuesday, I'm 55. I'm not going anywhere. If Clemson wants to get rid of me, I'll go somewhere else and coach. Do you believe that situations that you just talked about with maybe potentially having to bench a quarterback that's as high paid as Cade Klubnik versus looking for development that you just spoke about, do you feel like that could be something that maybe persuades Dabo to not quit tomorrow, but maybe change his thoughts, much like Nick Saban realized? I know Nick Saban and Dabo are different ages, but much like Saban realized that this new era wasn't for him.
I think we would have had that answer probably a few years ago. And I know Sweeney has his frustrations with NIL and sort of the governance of it all and the leadership at the top and how wacky the structure of it all is. But I do think he's one to stay in college football. And I genuinely do believe this. Clemson fans may not like to hear this. Sweeney is the right guy for Clemson to figure this out. It's just a matter of the changes that need to be made.
Sure.
And some of the reflection. Clemson, in all honesty, could use a 6-6 season to kind of try to reset the template, figure it out, and maybe that's where they're headed based on what we've seen in the last four games. But it's the kind of season that wakes you up a little bit. It's a slap to the face. It's a kick to the keister that you don't like to have, but maybe 2 years down the road, fans are thinking, and 2025 was necessarily painful, but maybe in a few years it all works out for them.
Grayson, you're the best. We appreciate you as always, and we'll talk again next week, man.
It's going to be Belichick versus Dabo Swinney. That's still going to be fun.
And we've got 2 weeks to talk about it, right?
It's going to be great. I can't wait, and I'm always thankful to do it here, guys. Thank you.
Maybe we'll bring you on if you learn to watch your language. Keister? Come on, Grayson. You're better than that.
I'm sorry. I know that's like an FC. I'm so sorry.
Hey,
guys.
Listen, compared to the subject line that I had to Grayson earlier with it, I mean, that's That's PG, right?
That was pretty masterful because it took me a second.
Am I going to get you in trouble with your employer because of that in your inbox?
Oh, no.
Hopefully not. Okay, good. All right, thanks. Thanks, Grayson. Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. You heard him right here on the Fan Upstate. We've got Overreaction Monday coming your way in 15 minutes, but next, Daily Wires Part 2. We just can't fit all of the Daily Wires into one, not even two segments today. Daily Wires,
Bzz, bzz.
part two. Two
Yeah.
buzzes. Two buzzes.
That's right.
In case you missed it,
Double
Clemson
buzz.
fell to Syracuse over the weekend, 34-21. Tigers now 1-3 on the season. Also, the Gamecocks fell to Mizzou on Saturday, 29-20. So the Gamecocks now 2-2. Locally over the weekend, Diesel Walford fell to Virginia Tech. No surprise there. They're still winless on the season, 38-6.
You can't lose to
Furman.
Virginia Tech. They suck.
Yeah, you suck too, unfortunately. Not you, Walford football.
Oh, okay.
Furman was on a bye. North Greenville fell to number 3 West Florida, 25-17. And Anderson lost to Mars Hill, 21-14. Just 24 minutes ago, Kevin Giltner, Diesel, former Wofford College assistant coach under Mike Young, who was with Mike Young at Virginia Tech since Mike left, tweeted home, and it is now officially official. Kevin Giltner has agreed to become the new head coach of the Wofford Terriers. Diesel, I went on a rant Friday on the show about how bad of a state Wofford athletics were in. You remember that?
Did.
And they one-upped me by, in my opinion, absolutely making a home run of a hire, bringing back Kevin Giltner, who is obviously has deep, deep Wofford ties, coached under Mike Young, and I think this is as good as a hire as Wofford could have made. Unfortunately, Coach Perry, that ended kind of messy, but boy, this is how they got Kevin Giltner to come back right now. Blows my mind. What a big hire by Wofford.
Yeah, big time shoes to fill, big time expectations at Wofford.
Miami jumped LSU and Penn State into the number 2 spot in the AP poll behind Ohio State this weekend. The Toronto Blue Jays became the first American League team to secure a spot in the postseason on Sunday with an 8-5 victory against the Kansas City Royals.
I thought the Phillies did that last week.
I don't know. It's a good question. Let's see here. It is, you mentioned this, Diesel, very sad to report that O-line coach and former App State head coach Sean Clark passed away. Was it this morning? Is that right?
Yesterday.
Yeah. Hate to hear that. Absolutely hate to hear that.
Nothing official is out there as to the exact cause of death. A lot of people believe that it might have been a stroke.
Hate to hear that. Bruce Pearl, maybe the biggest news of the day, expected to retire as the head coach at Auburn. His son is expected and has finalized the deal last I saw for 5 years to become the new head coach over at Auburn. So
Nepotism hire.
You think so?
I mean, is that where we are now? Coaches setting up their sons to be the next head coaches after them? You know,
I think so.
A coach in waiting is one thing, but when the coach in waiting is your son, I mean, Belichick at North Carolina, Pearl at Auburn. It's unbelievable, man. Like these schools are setting themselves up to fall hard.
So you don't believe in Pearl's son, Pearl Jr.?
I don't know who Stephen Pearl is. Are you kidding me? He should get the job because he's qualified for the job, not because Daddy Rich Bucks set him up for it.
Well, hopefully he is qualified. We'll see what Auburn looks like in the next few years.
I'm sure he knows ball, but I mean, would he be considered for that job if his dad wasn't the previous head coach?
I can't say yes or no. I don't know him well. I don't know his resume well enough, but we'll see, right? Time will tell.
When we come back, it is time for you Tolos finally, because the phone lines have been oddly quiet today from you Clemson fans.
Shocker.
South Carolina fans. Are you hiding? Did you put your heads in a hole? Did you bury your phone? What's going on? Call in, text in 844-FAN-PHONE, because when we come back, it is Overreaction Monday. Cole, on a day when the Tolos should be livid about what they saw with their teams, unless you're a Panthers fan, in which case you're happy about what you saw. But Clemson fans should be livid. South Carolina fans should be livid.
Cowboy fans
are always livid. Cole, I mean, come on. The phone lines are way too empty. There's like basically tumbleweed rolling past. 844-326-3663. Don't be timid. Don't be meek. You got something to say. Now's your chance. Call in. It's Overreaction Monday. Your chance to let your voice be heard over something you saw this weekend. Let's go right to it, Cole. We'll get to ours eventually, I hope. Yeah, hopefully, maybe. The phone lines are so lit up that we don't even have a chance to get to ours. Let's hear from T-Experience, who's got something to overreact to on this Overreaction Monday. T-Experience?
Every single time. You're going to get that long sigh, long huff and puff, the feeling of dejectedness and whatever. Guys, you started this competition. We call in, we give our teams projected record for the season, and I was all high and mighty on my Gators. Gators fan since '89, mind you. I called in, I said 9-3 with confidence. Called you back. I changed that pick.
Yeah, you did.
8-4.
I mean, you changed it, but we didn't give you credit for the change, T-Experience. You got to stand on what you said earlier.
I know. I'm still standing on the 9-3, but at this point, guys, why is he still there? Get rid of him. Send him back to Louisiana. What? Come on. Elementary football. This is bad football. Y'all talking about Clemson and South Carolina. I'm here in Greenville. I've been living here all my life. But this is bad football.
Do you think T-Experience, do you think getting rid of Billy Napier right now would accomplish anything? I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit.
Yes. Absolutely yes.
Okay. What would it accomplish?
It'll put some heart back into somebody somewhere on that team. Just pure confidence. You talk about Dabo. Dabo, he's confident. He knows what he's doing. But, again, his pride, and as great take that you made about his pride, good Lord.
Hey, T-Experience, do you want Dabo? There's some Clemson fans who would send down there for you.
Absolutely not. At least Billy would try to get into the portal.
Okay.
That's like allergic reaction to him, touching the portal. He's like killed.
He'd give DJ Lagway $500,000 just because he's been there for a year.
Richard Dabo in the old movie Pee-wee's Big Adventure, when he kept going by getting those pets out of the burning store, and finally at the end, it was like the snakes, and he wouldn't touch the snakes until the end. And when they found him at the end, the firefighter and everybody had to revive Pee Wee Herman because he finally decided, let me just pull the snakes out.
Now, that is a reference I never thought I would hear on these airwaves. Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah, my head is like Herman's head, so it's just imagine. But, yeah, man, that's all. It's just, he's got to go. Is there
an assistant on staff that Florida Gator fans are looking at and saying, that's the guy we want as our interim?
No, absolutely not. No.
Clean house.
So who do you want? Who do you want, T-Experience? Before we let you go, who do you want?
At this point, just bring back freaking heck no. I was gonna say Muschamp, but no, never. Just I don't know. We just need to start fresh.
Start fresh.
Get him out of here. I'd even take Dan Mullen back. They shouldn't have let him go.
You're right. They should not have let Dan Mullen go. Thanks for the call, man.
Experience.
He's right. He ultimately is right. I've said it for years. They should not have let Dan Mullen go when they did, but they did, and now they're in this situation. And I'm not saying Dan Mullen's like Urban Meyer 2.0, but I think they might have pulled the trigger a little quick on Dan Mullen.
I guess national championships in Gainesville, Florida right now. Bit of a snipe hunt, right? It's not a real thing. They got to chase after it, wasting a lot of energy. Not finding it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Let's go to the phone lines again and bring on Dewey, who's got something to say. Dewey.
Oh, well, I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, but here I'm going to use some observation. Clemson, for example, either they're a bad team or those players don't want to play for Dabo no more.
Either they're a bad team.
Because if you watch the Syracuse game, and they lost, they got their butts handed to them, but the better team was still Clemson. And I say that if you go back and watch how Syracuse played, Syracuse made some idiotic mistakes, not catching balls. Syracuse could have ran away with that game further than what it did. But any other team, the way that Clemson was playing, any other team would have. Syracuse isn't that good of a team. So that leaves me wondering, was Clemson just sucks that bad, or the coaches don't really have that team no more? And that it's going to be a soul-searching mission for them. As for South Carolina, Beamer was pretty angry after his press after the game. But with them, they need an overhaul also. Their offensive calling sucks. Their defense was horrible. Joker. I mean, a couple of good plays here and there, and they held on. So South Carolina isn't really.
Sorry, Dewey, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going. What'd you say?
I forgot what I was saying. South Carolina isn't a bad team, but at the same time, they can't finish. They can't finish the job. If they can't finish the job, they're not going to win. They ain't going to win many more games this year. And that's about all I got for that.
Okay.
One other overreaction. If you look at the Braves, they won 8 straight games.
Yeah. And
they're going to fail to make the playoffs. And somehow they're 6 games out of the wild card because all the other teams above them suck.
Thanks, Dewey. That was painful.
Yeah. Rough stuff.
Dale up next on Overreaction Monday. What's up, Dale?
So how does one person get to call in when you're giving away TSO tickets and be not just the first, but the 4th caller? How is that possible?
What do you mean?
Last week, you guys were giving away TSO tickets. And the 5th person to call in was the one that got the ticket. Well, I called in successfully twice and played 1st and 4th.
Were you 5th, though, Dale?
That's amazing.
Were you 5th?
Of course not. No, but 4 and 1 is 5.
That's
4
like,
and 1 is 5. I mean,
well, you should have been 5th, Dale, not 4th or 1st.
Close only matters in horseshoes and hand grenades, Dale.
True. Yeah.
boy, you ain't ever lied about that. And now, as far as close, there was not a DB close to a freaking Bears receiver yesterday, and I was about ready to just chuck the remote, man.
It was bad, wasn't it?
TV.
It was really, really bad.
Eberflus, is he a charity case? Why is he there?
Yeah, he sucks. I said leave him in Chicago yesterday. He's horrible. Trayvon Diggs has forgotten how to play football as well, I believe.
Sucking would be an understatement as to what Matt Eberflus was. I hate to use the words toxic waste of life, but he's getting there, man. I mean, that defense was atrocious.
It was bad. It's been that way for three. It's been that way the whole season. The 3 games, Dale.
No, we looked fairly decent. We looked fairly competent against the Eagles.
Okay, that's fair. But last 2 weeks, you made Russell Wilson look like, Russell Elway, and Caleb Williams looked way better than he is last night.
I mean, he looked like a Heisman Trophy winner.
I know.
He didn't look like that in a while.
Well, Dale, are you gonna buy your TSO tickets now, or were you only gonna go if they were free?
Oh no, I'm probably still gonna buy them. But I gotta pony up.
Thanks, Dale.
Thanks, Dale. All right, let's go to the phone lines and bring on Madcraft, whose Miami Hurricanes are number 2 in the country. Good God. He's hitting in college. He's hitting in the NFL. It's not fair how much success your teams are having right now.
Hey, I'm going to one-up you there. I get to enjoy all of this on my birthday. That first call from T-Experience, that was a breath of fresh air to me.
Today's your birthday?
So beautiful. Hey, listen. Yeah, today's my birthday.
Happy birthday to you. I think we have a Dewey birthday somewhere.
Happy birthday to you. Oh, happy birthday to you. Oh, happy birthday. Your underwear smells. Happy birthday to you. Oh.
How about that? You didn't know that was coming today, did you, Matt?
Hey, that's awesome. But listen, just real quick to tag on the T experience there, I got two stats that I would like to bring out. The first is that are two numbers, 141. Mm-hmm. That was the total yardage that Florida had on the game. Okay, but the better stat is 0-13. They did not get a first down on third downs.
Ooh.
Like they did not convert a third down the entirety of the game.
That's bad. Real bad.
I know.
Suboptimal.
But look, I'll be the first to tell you, I thought Miami was going to be good. I did not know. Like, I think that there's a fair debate right now to say that Miami might be the number one team in the country. And I would not have said that coming in, but, there's some debate about that.
Madcraft, do you think Miami's this good, or do you think the top teams in college football are this down?
Now that's a fair. I don't know. I'd have to think.
A little bit of both.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
But,
I'm proud that you just were honest about that.
Well, no, like I said, not to be repetitive, but I knew we were going to be good.
Yeah.
I did not know we were going to be that good.
That's fair.
Because right now we look complete. And I wasn't expecting that. Let's be honest. Our defense really wasn't good last year.
No, defensive line's gotten a lot better.
Hey, Madcraft, Miami's off this week, right? They're on a bye?
Yes.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I mean, with Ohio State playing Washington, I mean, Miami could have put up a big performance, maybe jump Ohio State. Do you think there's anything they can do to jump Ohio State for the number one spot?
Well, I think next week, not this coming weekend, but the following week is going to play an importance. I think we'll have game day again in Tallahassee.
Ooh.
And we come out on that one on top, then our resume, I don't think it's questionable at that point.
I like it.
Thanks, Madcraft.
Appreciate you. Next up, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is how the phone lines should be on an Overreaction Monday. Tom, how did you feel first after the Clemson loss? Did you feel like you were setting up for a great day and then, man, Missouri just snatched it away from you?
Oh, no. I mean, I knew as soon as Clemson got embarrassed that we were going to find a way to think we were going to win and let them snatch it away from us. I mean, let's be honest. When we had the ball, first and goal, inside the 10 early in the third quarter, and we had to kick the field goal, at that moment, we had every opportunity to take it and run away with it, and we, let it go right down our leg. I mean, 16 missed tackles.
Yeah.
-9 rushing yards. I was sitting at home Saturday night, and, as a lifelong Gamecock, we've come to expect this type of garbage. And, I came up, and I should have came up with this a long time ago. But this year especially, I got a game for everybody. So, if you drink, every missed tackle, finish your beer. If you don't drink, every missed tackle, run a mile, and you'll be happy. That's what you should do.
What?
So the Gamecocks missed 16 tackles on Saturday.
Who do you know that can run 16 miles, Tom?
Not me, but there's somebody. Somebody will do it. Heck, do half a mile. But if you live by those two things this year as a Gamecock fan, you'll be mentally healthy and physically healthy. So, just take that with a grain of salt for the rest of the year, where if we have a bunch of missed tackles, you're either going to be feeling really good or, not so good the next day. But, guys, I don't get it. Lenore's played well. I don't know if maybe he just needs to go back to the goggles. It might be the visor. Maybe if he just gets rid of the visor and goes back to the goggles, he'll run more.
Tom, it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback if you have -9 rushing yards. It doesn't matter.
And 98 yards of penalties.
That is also true. If you finish the game with -9 rushing yards, you better be lucky you only lost by 9, because the way they were running up and down the field on us, and we couldn't tackle them. And then you mix in the fact that every time they ran the ball, it went backwards. You're not going to win many games that way. And, you better be careful on Saturday, because if you lose to this Kentucky team who can run the football, they got 2 good running backs. If you have that type of performance this weekend and you get beat at home again, there's going to be some toxicity we have not seen since 2015, and y'all better be ready for it.
Hey, Tom, given the totality of the Clemson for performances we've seen this season and the South Carolina performances we've seen this season, the winner of that game will be a race to how many points?
Oh, man. Diesel, that might be the first ever Carolina-Clemson game that they put on at 7 a.m. on the Cartoon Network.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate you, man.
It's going to be 10 points.
Thanks, Tom. There you go.
Tom in Somerville, bringing it, baby. Bringing it.
Michael, you're up. What have you got to say, Michael?
What's up, y'all? I mean, hey, it is the Boo-Hoo Blues call.
Yeah, it's been bad.
Now. Everyone, misery loves company, man. I both teams just really not coming up with it. But Clemson, I mean, God, I grew up a Clemson fan, and listen, I know they do the whole best is the standard, and there's been a lot of success, but and this is not really a moral victory, but when I'm not that old, so I was just getting into football, and I remember the mighty Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets running the triple option, making it look sexy. And they beat Clemson twice in one season. And I looked at my dad and I went, Dad, do we ever beat Georgia Tech? And I mean, I just feel like I'm kind of reliving that with what I've been seeing so far with the lack of run game, offensive struggles, Cade Klubnik I don't know. So it's funny to see now all these Clemson fans come out and rant and rave about getting rid of Dabo, but I don't think you can separate the identity that he's placed himself into that program. It's kind of, I don't think you can do that.
What do you mean by that, Michael?
The identity that Dabo's instilled into Clemson?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really think about the way he runs that program. I don't know. I think it's a lot of intangibles, and maybe I'm a vibes guy, but I don't think Clemson is really Clemson without Dabo there.
You mean in terms of what he's built, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I think everybody agrees with that.
So you're telling me that the family feel, kumbaya, everybody link hands is more important than winning?
No, I don't think that's at all what he meant.
Listen, I'm just saying, if Oklahoma State held on to Mike Gundy, and that video, I'm a man, I'm 40, was 20 freaking years ago, and they still held on to that cat, then Clemson, who has actually won 2 natties with Dabo, he's got a little bit, more leash, line than
I think to your point, Michael, I think what Dabo's built is the reason Clemson was as successful as they were in the era where they were successful. However, I'll agree with you on that. However, this era that they're in now is a complete different era than what Dabo won in. It's almost a different sport. So while I agree with you, Clemson doesn't win 2 national championships without Dabo Swinney in that era. They don't win them. However, this is a complete new sport now, and we just haven't seen Dabo Swinney perform at his best in this new era, in this new sport. That's what concerns me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question arises, do you think he'll really change? Because, it's catching up. It's hitting him in the face right now. This is the first time he's been looking at a 1-3 record, and you could tell he took it personally.
Yeah.
So how do you is it time to either hang it up or adapt to the times?
Thanks, Michael. Great phone call.
Yeah,
Appreciate
really
you.
good call.
Yeah, I mean, it's I would argue that the loyalty first version of this Dabo Swinney Clemson football program right now is not the thing that won him national championships. I don't think he won national championships because he was keeping guys in the program longer than everybody else was, because everybody had to keep guys in the program because the transfer rules were different back then. I just think Dabo's lost the fire, and he's sort of resting on his laurels, and he's maybe putting entirely too much stock in his belief and trust in the people who were around him, and is just complacent in the fact that, oh, I hired somebody good, they must be good, or I hired somebody that I've been around for a while and I trust him to do the things the way that I would want them done. Well, that's fine, but your job is to win football games.
Yeah,
your job is to not provide job opportunities for people that you're familiar with.
And I think, to Michael's point, what I agree with Diesel, and what I think Michael meant is nobody else is bringing Clemson to the level of success that Dabo Swinney built. It took a special type of person with a special type of personality that knew in that era how to get the most out of his guys and knew how to recruit and knew what kind of culture to build. It took that kind of person to do it. Unfortunately, in this new era, it takes a different kind of person. So does Dabo Swinney adapt to the different sport that he's now playing in? I think that's where, and again, like I said earlier in the show, you can go out and get portal guys. That doesn't mean he's going to be developing them right, Diesel. They're not developing guys right now. They're just not. A few texts before we run to a break. A lot of text on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. Let's see. Texter says, my overreaction is that Auburn and Oklahoma need to be replayed. That was the worst officiated game I've ever seen. Egregious. And Diesel, you said it, if you have a call like that, you should go back to where you messed up the call and start from there. Right?
I mean, how long did it take him to figure out that they missed that call? I mean, was it after the game that they realized, oh crap, we let this go? Was it 2 plays later? After the ball had been kicked off? I mean, that play directly resulted in a touchdown. If that play is a run up the middle for a gain of 1,
sure,
maybe it's not necessary to do it. But when it directly results in a score that contributes to the final outcome of the game, you have to go back and say, we have to take that away.
Eric,
but you can't just take the points off the board. You have to go back and pick it up from that moment.
Eric from Boiling Springs texts in and says, it's time for Dabo to shut up and coach. Give me 10-minute pressures. Give me 10-minute pressers and coach. When a team has 500 yards of offense and loses the way they did, it doesn't make sense. Been a Clemson fan for almost 40 years, and we'll be honest when it comes to the team. Great text, Eric. Appreciate your honesty and appreciate you listening as well. Texter Keith and TR says, I don't know if this is an overreaction, but I tagged Beamer on Saturday night and told him if Teasley still has a job, he could pack up and head to Virginia Tech. Look, I don't know if it's all Lonnie Teasley. I don't know if Sean Elliott's not as involved as he needs to be, Keith. I'm with you. The offensive line is an embarrassment. I like Lonnie Teasley a lot. I think he's a good recruiter, and I think he knows what he's doing when it comes to offensive line. But for whatever reason, they're just not getting the production there. Leprechaun Lyman says, my overreaction, I'm coming for the top spot in the Upset Picks Challenge. Is that true? Is that true?
We'll wait and see. We get a lot of help from Tolo Dan Beat, who puts the graphics together, who compiles all of these scores. He's one of us. He's working today. Is
he in the air?
He did say, I spoke to him on Saturday and he said he was flying to Florida for something, I think. Yeah. So he is a working individual. Okay. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be ready by showtime every single Monday. We also want to make sure we get it all right. That's also key to get it all right.
Yeah, and I better be on that freaking board this week, dadgummit.
I know I will not be.
How about,
for God's sakes, East Carolina laid an egg at home to a freshman quarterback.
I told you, Diesel. I told you the Memphis Tigers were gonna do it, gonna pull it off, and it took me 4 weeks, but I'm finally on the board. Percy says, did I get on the board? I chose Troy. Percy, stay tuned. Turn it on and leave it on. We'll get it to you very, very shortly. We still have a loaded show coming your way. We will have, so here's what we're going to do, Tolos. At 6 o'clock, we're going to have What Dabo Said as our segment. He's speaking to the media through his weekly Sunday webinar that was moved to Monday due to the bye week. He's speaking to the media in like 5 minutes. However, we can't carry it live, so we will bring it to you about 30 minutes after the fact. right here on the Fan Upstate. But how about a good old-fashioned audio blitz next right here on the Fan Upstate? Well, Diesel, we're going to get to some audio in a second. We also have Dabo Sweeney coming up in like 30 minutes. We can't air it live, but we can bring it close to live, right? As long as it's recorded. So we'll have
Thanks
that.
a lot, lawyers.
That's right. And we also have some news today that we have failed to mention. The ACC has announced it will move to 9 conference games with at least one non-conference game against a Power 4 team.
I think that's a mistake, the way they did it.
Think so?
Yeah, I think it's a big mistake.
Well, let me tell you what Jim Phillips said about it.
Oh.
Because, Jim Phillips, Jim Phillips is we have been incredibly intentional throughout our discussions on ACC football, says ACC commissioner, including the future of our conference schedule. Today, the athletic directors of the 17 football playing institutions overwhelmingly supported a regular season schedule that includes 9 conference games and a minimum of 10 games each year against Power 4 opponents. This positions the ACC as one of the only 2 leagues committed to having every team annually play a minimum of 10 games against Power 4 teams. There will be additional discussions, Diesel, about more details to be determined, but today's decision showcases the commitment and leadership of our ADs and balancing what's best for strength. And that's an input.
Yeah, print it on a banner, put it on the wall at ACC kickoff next year. The only conference that mandates 10 power conference opponents every year. I don't get it. I mean, why? I mean, the ACC is pretty clearly the weakest of the 4 Power 4 conferences. I know that you go back and forth with the Big 12 in some years, arguably. So why do you want to hamstring your own institutions and say, we're going to make you play another team from the weakest Power 4 conference? Why not give them the flexibility to go schedule somebody from the Big 12, the Big 10, or the SEC, unless you're under the impression that because they're all at 9 conference games also, that they may have fewer opportunities to even schedule additional power opponents. They may say, well, we got our 9. We're good with that.
Right.
Sorry, we're not interested. In which case, you'd be forced to come back to this position in the future anyway. I just don't understand why you squeeze Florida State and Florida, why you squeeze Clemson, South Carolina, why you squeeze Georgia Tech, Georgia, and then Pitt, West Virginia.
So let's hear, Diesel, from a few players and coaches this past weekend. What was said? A little audio blitz in this short segment that we have remaining before we run off the break in a few minutes. Let's start with Brian Dabo. He was asked a pretty clear question. Here's how he responded.
Start next week, Russell.
Yeah, you guys have asked me about players after games. I'm not going to answer that.
He's not answering that. He's not going there. Should Russell Wilson be benched? 0-3, Diesel. I mean, I don't know that Jackson Dart's going to come in and be the savior, but eventually, to save your job, don't you have to do something different? I think eventually they might make a change, and it might be pretty soon.
It was interesting what Grayson said about Cade Klubnik. He's $1 million man on campus, and bench somebody who's making that much money. Is that where we are now in college sports?
100%.
We refuse to move on from starters because they're the highest paid players on the team, and we can't have the optics of our rich players sitting on the bench.
But that's what everybody wanted. That's what we wanted college sports to be. That's what scholarship wasn't enough. You got what you wanted. What about Dak Prescott? What he said after yesterday's embarrassing loss?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously I want every rep. Never happy about getting pulled out, but you've got to be realistic and professional, understanding that where the game was. I had a chance right there, as I said, to go score in the red zone, and we didn't. And at that point, it was 3-score game with 2 minutes left. And it's a young season.
No, it's not. It's over.
As I am, and I want to get out there and get every rep. Those guys are teeing off in the rush, right? And I want to stay healthy and want to be healthy, and I'm sure that was a big part of that decision there.
It's not a young season. You're 1-2. You're not going to win Sunday against the Packers. You're then going to be 1-3. Diesel, Jerry Jones was asked, I love this question, if he thought this 1-2 football team was a playoff caliber football team. Here's his answer. Let me try that again.
Is this a playoff caliber team? The Cowboys? Yes.
I'm going to tell you, yes.
No, Jerry.
Yes.
Which team, Jerry?
No,
the one
Jerry.
you own.
Oh, the Cowboys.
Yeah.
No, the
The
Dolphins.
Eagles? Yeah, I think the Eagles are a playoff caliber team.
What an idiot. What? The Cowboys? No, Jerry. The Burns Rebels. Yes. One more. Listen.
Playoff caliber team. The Cowboys? Yes. I'm going to tell
Cowboys?
you, yes.
Cowboys?
Yes. And that's because you saw number 4 out there today. And you saw what I think we're capable of doing in the running game and that type of deal. So, yes, I fully do. Now, we've got to, as we evolve toward the playoffs, we've got to get better defensive.
You think? You got to get better. But hey, the run game.
Is that your expert opinion, Jerry?
The run game gives them confidence that they can be a playoff. What a joke. The Cowboys? No, Jerry. The other team that you own. A couple more for you before we run off the break. How about Diego Pavia? Why every game is so important to him. If you haven't heard this is pretty cool audio.
No matter who you – but I always think that, like, no matter who you play, there's always going to be one kid that's going to be his last game seeing you, ever. I don't come from a lot of money, so I remember, like, going to one game. That was my only impression of him. So I want to, be the best version of me for those kids that, get to only go to one game.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool seeing them,
Why is every game important to you, Diego? Because I can't let everybody date my mom.
That's true, too. What about Cade Klubnik? What'd he say before we were off the break? After, by the way, this was after the loss.
Close. We're so close. But, we got all the ingredients and just not really baking the cake right now. We got all the pieces, and it's tough. It's hard to see. This is hard, this is hard, and it's tough. So just continue to fight for the guys in there and fight for the coaches and just fight for this program. And I feel like we fought till the very last play today, and we'll continue to.
You might have the right ingredients, but those ingredients don't taste good in that cake. You know what I mean? That's the problem. He thinks he has the right ingredients, but those ingredients just don't. Diesel, sometimes when not your wife makes something, because your wife's a great cook and never makes bad items or dishes. But sometimes when somebody makes something and it just doesn't taste right, maybe that's what Cade needs to taste, a bad piece of cake.
Cade, it seems as if, if we're going to use the cooking reference here, you're doing all your shopping at the discount food store that sells the produce that's a day or two out of date.
That's true.
That's what you're trying to cook with. And no wonder your meal tastes like crap.
We referenced this earlier in the show. These are a little bit personal for Baker Mayfield yesterday. Here's why. I love this, by the way. Big fan of this audio.
But you know what it's like to go up against teams that you've played for.
Yep.
How big was it for you guys to get the victory for him?
I loved it. And it's also their D coordinator was the one that cut me in Carolina. So it was a lot of stuff was personal today.
Just tell us how you really
taking
feel.
Shots at old Steve Wilkes.
I love it though, man. Like we talked about it earlier. You gotta find things, man, that motivate you. And Baker Mayfield, how do you not pull for this guy?
I don't think I've ever heard anyone say a bad word about Steve Wilkes.
Until today, right?
Yeah, this might be the first time. Everybody loves Steve Wilkes.
People wanted him to get the head coaching job.
They did.
So we'll see. That is a little bit of an audio blitz for you.
When we come back, Cole, since we're all about rankings and trying to figure out where teams are in a hierarchy, where does South Carolina officially rank in the hierarchy of bad roads in the United States? The data is out there. Are they in the top 10 best? Are they in the top 10 worst? We'll talk about it next. Tolos, when was the last time that you were driving in another state and you said, oh, man, this is nice. It's smooth roads, no potholes, no orange construction barrels all over the place. I mean, I feel that way, Cole, most of the time when I go to North Carolina, because I think North Carolina does a really good job when it comes to using their gas taxes to actually pay for roadway improvements. I don't know what's going on here in the state of South Carolina, what's going on down in Columbia with Governor Foghorn Leghorn, but I don't think they're using our tax dollars to actually fix the roads like they're supposed to. There's a list, Cole, of the states with the best and the worst roadways in America. Okay. And if you're looking for smooth roads to go on, you want to go to Indiana, Kansas, South Dakota, Wyoming, Vermont, Tennessee, Idaho, Georgia, which every time I drive down to Georgia, their roads are always in great shape.
Yeah.
North Dakota and Nebraska. Those are your top 10 best roads in America. It's not shocking that the states up north where they get a ton of snow, and I'm sure they have to like grind the put salt down and run the snow plows all the time. They're constantly repaving those roads, so they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
But the states, Cole, that are in the worst shape, number 1, Rhode Island. Never driven in Rhode Island. It's odd that the state with road in the name has the worst roads in America. Hawaii.
Spelled a little bit different. Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Hawaii, New Mexico.
They have roads in Hawaii, by the way?
I think you have to
Oh,
travel
just
around
all
the back of a
beaches.
lizard
Yeah,
out there.
yeah.
New Mexico, which I've driven in New Mexico. That's true. They have awful roads, which is weird because it's so dry. You shouldn't mess with the roads. Connecticut, Mississippi, Washington, Maryland, California, Pennsylvania, and Oklahoma. Those are the top 10 worst roads in America. They don't list all 50 in here, but that just goes to show South Carolina, as bad as we may think we got it, is not in the top 10 best, not in the top 10 worst.
Wow. I figured they would be probably top 10.
Yeah.
I figured they'd be maybe even top 15.
They somehow rate this, and how exactly they rate this, I'm not sure, but they rate it on a scale, percentage of acceptable roadways. Indiana, number 1, 97.4% acceptable roadways. The worst, Rhode Island, sits at 55.3% acceptable roadways. Where would you think South Carolina lands if they had listed all 50?
I would have thought near 15%. Oh,
acceptable?
Oh, no. No.
It feels that way, right?
It does.
Given the roads I have to take to get to work every day, that's what it feels like.
Yeah. Tolos Dabo Sweeney is currently speaking in a weekly Zoom that usually is held on Sundays, but due to the bye week was held tonight. We will bring you what he said. Grayson Mann is live tweeting as we speak. We'll bring you his exact quotes and our reactions to the Dabo Sweeney webinar that's happening for the first time since his post-game comments after the Syracuse loss. We'll discuss and react with your thoughts as well next.
mean, this is my life, man. I mean, I've been here 23 years. I love this place. I give this place the very best I got every single day. Every day. There's never been a day that I haven't given Clemson every ounce of everything I have. I hurt. I mean, I've invested my life here. And when I don't get the job done, I'm responsible. And I feel the pain. You know, it's not just my pain. I feel everybody's pain. And, you know, but that comes with my job. And I don't run from that at all. I mean, I've been in these situations many times. I've had a lot of great days, and this is a very, very low day. But I also know that we'll get through it. And there'll be a lot more great days. You know, nobody wants to hear that in this moment, but that's what drives me is you know, being able to look back at different moments in my life and my career, certainly. And, you know, you got through it. You got better. You know, there's a lot of great days. So I just hurt. I mean, I hurt. I mean, I hurt, obviously, just because I take pride in what I do. But I hurt for our team, hurt for our fans. And I certainly feel that.
Certainly feel that, says Dabo Swinney. We're going to bring you some comments as he is speaking live to the media right now for the first time since that audio that you heard that Diesel just played from post-game against Syracuse. Diesel, before we get to the tweets from Grayson Mann, who, by the way, we heard from at 420. In case you missed it, we'll have that interview for you later this hour. But before we get to what Dabo said tonight, that audio that you just heard from Dabo Swinney there to start the segment, that was a different Dabo, just in terms of like what we heard on Tuesday, the audio that sounded arrogant and boastful and prideful about, you know, going on this tirade about what I've done for Clemson and what we've been able to accomplish. You fast forward, what, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 days, that Dabo Swinney sounded a lot different.
Yeah, there was a lot of humility or a humiliated coach. I mean, look, like we were talking about earlier in the show, Dabo has won 2 national championships. He clearly knows a lot about football. He hired what we thought was an elite OC 3 years ago. He hired who we thought or think still is an elite DC. He's done what he's supposed to do to fix the issues that plagued them before these 2 individuals got there.
Yeah.
You can put as many elite level coaches in there as you want to, but it's still on them to coach the players, and it's still on the players to execute. And the players have not executed at all to the standard that we all believed they were. And so the question becomes, are the players really just not that good? Were they all overrated going into the season for some reason, or are they just not accepting the instruction that the coaches are giving them?
Yeah, and you know, ultimately, Diesel. And by the way, Clemson fans out there, we'd love to hear from you as well at 844-326-3663. Also live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. 230 watching the stream right now. Ultimately, there's a lot of reasons Clemson's not good right now. You can throw coaching in there. You can throw, run game in there if you want to. I really don't think that's been a big part of it. You can throw quarterback in there, OC, DC, tackles, whatever. You throw all those reasons into the pot. It may be on the players more than it is on the coaches. Maybe on the offensive coordinator more than it is on Cade Klubnik. But Diesel, guess what? The buck stops with one person. Cade Klubnik doesn't run that program. Garrett Riley doesn't run that program. They're not getting paid. Going back to the old Tyler and Spartanburg, they're not getting paid what Dabo Swinney's getting paid to make to do what he does and fix this program and get them back to being nationally relevant. While they may be at blame, ultimately the buck stops with Dabo. And that's where Dabo has to evaluate. And to your point, we thought hiring Garrett Riley and Tom Allen would be, good hires.
Yeah.
Just hadn't panned out that way. And now I believe Dabo's in a tougher spot today than he was when he took the job. And you say, well, Cole, that doesn't make sense because he took Clemson from nothing to national relevance. But we know getting there is hard, but staying there is what's really, really challenging.
Yeah, and, a lot of times when you have great programs, elite programs that go through a lull, it takes them a while to get back to where they want to be. Sometimes it's a 10-year stretch between national relevance. And it also kind of highlights just how impressive it is what Clemson football has been over the past 10 seasons. However, nobody cares about what you did 10 seasons ago. It's about what are you going to do for us this season? And I just wonder how damaging this 1-3 start and ultimately whatever the season ends up being, how damaging could it be to the elite level players that are on their way in? Grayson Mann alluded to it earlier. I didn't get a chance to ask him about it, but he talked about the handful of elite players that were on campus on Saturday for that performance, that stinker of a performance. I'm trying to scroll down here and find it, and he's doing a great job of live tweeting this press conference right now. It's not a press conference, the Zoom call.
Sure.
But he did post about a handful of players that are supposed to be there, that were there. So we've heard from various media members who say that wins and losses don't really affect the decision-making for 17, 18-year-old student athletes. I do wonder if booing in the middle of the game starts to affect, if a ton of people leaving a game. I understand there was a weather delay, but a ton of people leaving a game and then booing the players makes a talented young kid say, well, maybe I don't want to come here with these fair weather fans.
Diesel, I can tell you this. And again, we'll get to what Dabo said here shortly because he is still speaking. Shocker, right? I'll tell you what I believe speaks louder than anything before we get to the phone lines real quick is what I saw on social media this weekend with former players speaking out against the current state of the program, current players liking my tweet about Dabo in the portal and players not being developed, current players saying there needs to be a change at quarterback. That's what. You're talking about guys that built this program.
Yeah.
That's what should be alarming to Dabo more than anything is not that they're turning on him, but they want change, and rightfully so.
They're not shutting out that outside noise that this fan base and that this team and that people around them have been so good at doing for a while.
Let's go to the phone lines. TA in Gaffney wants to chime in. What's up, TA?
Hey, guys, I got 2 points. Want to step back a little bit about the roads. You guys do a little bit more research on that. I'm disagreeing with you guys today.
What is it?
What makes the United States the greatest country in the world? One of the top 3 to 5 reasons.
Our national park system?
Our national highway system. The fact that you can get and pull out of your driveway and go to anybody else's driveway in the United States that you can go from your driveway to their driveway. No other country in the world can say that.
Okay, but that's not even the point of the study, TA. It's the acceptability of the road conditions, potholes, all that kind of stuff.
What if we didn't have any roads? Would that
what is your point, TA? You're arguing. Hang on, TA. You're arguing that the study is invalid because we have more roads than anyone else.
No, we have more roads. We have better roads. It's just that they're comping our roads.
I'm talking state by state. I'm not talking nation by nation. I'm talking state by state, and they rank everything, TA. What are you upset about?
Bad topic, man. Just a bad topic.
Why? Why is it a bad topic?
Our road system. I can remember driving through Greenville in a 2-lane highway. Now you can go up to the sky.
Everybody complains about potholes. This is everyman conversation, TA.
No, I don't think it's everyman's conversation, but that's okay.
That's fair. You want to talk about mayonnaise instead while we're at it?
No, I'm going to talk about Dabo Sweeney.
Okay, good. Let's go.
That you guys are just getting overly. And I understand fireworks. I understand, just firecracker radio. And listen, the guy was in the championship field last year.
Here we go.
See, here we go. Oh,
Here we
God.
go.
Not going along with what we're talking about. Oh, my God. I got to dog out Dabo Swinney, and he's crying, and he's feeling all the pain. Oh, my God. But, no, Dabo is sincere. They're struggling. I mean, right now, this year, will they get better? Yes.
Will they? Will they get better? I hope. I think so. I don't think they can be much worse, TA. I'll tell you this. My thoughts on the Clemson situation with Dabo, not the Rhodes, but with Dabo, yeah. I said a minute ago earlier in the show, that I don't think any other coach could have done what Dabo did at Clemson. I think it took the right person with the right fit to do what Dabo did. However, Nick Saban said on College Game Day Saturday, you're only as good as your last play. And Dabo Swinney, TA, my biggest gripe with him is, other than the tirades he goes on with the media, my thing is what Dabo did, to your point, was incredible. However, it was, and you have to acknowledge, in a completely different sport than the sport he's coaching in now, right?
Maybe.
So my whole point is Dabo is unproven in this new sport of college football.
Okay, now that's different. That's different. That's different. And you talked about 10 years ago. I mean, I'm just talking about last year. I'm just talking about 10 months ago. I'm not talking about 10 years ago. I mean, he had Clemson in the playoffs 10 months ago.
He did.
If that. So I just think, again, Firecracker Radio, I get it. You got to talk about what the people's talking about.
Yeah.
And Nick Saban didn't leave on top. He left as a legend. And if Dabo left now, he would leave as a legend.
Sure.
He would leave possibly disappointed of some people that are disappointed. But
and again, for the record, TA, I personally speaking, I don't believe Dabo should be fired. Personally. I just believe ultimately that this new sport, this new era, he's got to figure something out before this thing gets off the rails.
Now, I agree with that.
Okay.
He has got the portal. He's got to go in, not like he did this past year and just sprinkle and pull a few out. He can't. He's got to dive in head first, let his toes come right behind his hands, and just do a nosedive right into the portal, a swimming pool, if you will, and pull every superstar like Missouri, who just beat South Carolina. Their running back dominated the Gamecocks all night, had 2 offers out of college, like Southern Miss and University of Louisiana Lafayette, something crazy.
Sure.
And he's dominating in the SEC right now. He ran all over South Carolina, like 7 100-yard games in a row. So, again, with that being said, I just slightly disagreed, wanted to get that in. But your last point, yes, he has to adjust to the times. Get in the portal, bring in, go to the SEC, go to the Pac-10, the Big 12, wherever you got to go to bring in an offensive line, to bring in a better DBs, bring in better offensive linemen, court running backs. I mean, the fact that they can't run the ball, they can't throw the ball, even with their best wide receiver back. And Wesco seemed to be the target this past week, but anyway,
TA, where do you want the program, not Dabo, this is the program here, where do you want them to pull that money from to make bringing in an elite offensive line a reality? Because with revenue share, it's a finite amount of money, and everybody in theory has the same amount of money to share. When it comes to NIL funds from the outside, I mean, it all has to go through that approval process, but in theory, that money is unlimited. But if you want to, but Dabo's methodology has been pay the guys who have been around for a while, reward them for sticking around, not paying guys up front to come in. So if you want to pull that, are you saying you want Dabo to pull that money away from the loyal guys and give it to the new guys?
If he has to.
Yeah, that's fair. To heck with loyalty. Yeah.
He has to.
I don't give a crap about loyalty.
I think he set a precedent when he paid his assistants, got them all raises, and supposedly took a pay cut for himself about 10 years ago to keep Brent Venables around, by the way.
Sure.
Since he's been gone, the defense has been garbage. But you've got to hire the right offensive coordinators, And yes, I would go to car dealerships, all the people that have revenue coming in near and around Clemson or in the state or where as far as my arms could reach.
Yeah.
I would go and I would ask for that NIL money so I could pay these guys to supposedly turn my program around right now because they have looked dadgum pitiful so far this year. I don't disagree with that.
TA, thanks for the call, man.
Appreciate you, TA.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Really good stuff there from TA. 844-326-3663. Kirby wants to weigh in. Kirby, what's up, man?
What's going on, fellas?
How are
you? Your last name Smart?
My last name's Kirby.
Oh, okay. What's up?
So, hey, I love this. I came in right in the middle of the interstate talk, and I heard TJ. He actually, I did not know that. I know we had a lot of highways. I didn't know we were the most accessible. But I did understand what he was saying. The ratio of good, we probably have so much highway. We just complain about the bad stuff, right? I want to talk a little NFC South with y'all. Okay. I am a Buccaneers fan for the past 20 plus years. The family's from Greenville. But I really, and I was trying to talk the guys from work into going to the Panthers game this weekend. I had a gut feeling. I didn't know. I thought they were going to pull it out by 3. I didn't know they were going to shut down the Falcons or the Falcons, if you want to call them that. They are such a gutless, heartless, no winning soul to them whatsoever. That 28-3 ripped the guts out of them. And I'm happy the Panthers, I'm happy with pulling for the Panthers when we're going against a common enemy, right? So these Falcons fans are so annoying. They thought they had the Super Bowl in the bag this year. Now they're flip-flopping quarterbacks week 3.
So who do you think wins the NFC South then?
Tampa Bay, until we have a reason to think that we can't, I'm a big Bucs fan. Until we have a reason, the offensive line, we'll see when we play Philly. This is going to be a game to see if we can really hang with the big boys. We do have a really good record against Jalen Hurts. I think we're 2-6 versus Todd Bowles versus the Eagles, something like that. So I think, and Jalen was not, that pass game was whack for the Eagles. And what the Bucs like to do is take away the run 100% and make them pass. That's why we need quick, lengthy corners. And but I think on the South, who has a chance unless the Panthers receivers can figure out how to run some routes? Maybe they can put a raccoon in the end zone for homeboy so he can take us a jet sweep or something and run it down. Get him a little 80 yards or something.
Hey, Kirby, you saw what happened. The last 5-6 weeks of the season last year for the Panthers, and how they kind of lit up and became a competent football team in the last part of that season. Obviously, first 2 weeks, awful for the Panthers. Week 3, it seems like something is lit up. Does that concern you at all as a Bucs fan?
Well, yes, because the Panthers always play us hard, and it's a division game. That's what the Falcons, they thought they were coming in. They thought the junk was sweet when they came into Charlotte. I was willing to, listen, guys, I have a family of 5. I was willing to pay for tickets for each one of me and my kids to go watch the Panthers beat the Falcons. I tried to get some of the dudes of work to come. My wife was like, no, let's go to Carowinds. You get the cheap tickets. And she was like, we can go when the Bucs come. I was like, okay, cool. But I really want to take my kids. They're young. I was like, okay. So I'm watching the Bucs game while I'm at Carowinds in line waiting for the splash train or whatever. And I'm watching the Bucs. They're getting, the Jets are coming back. I'm like, oh God, same old Bucs. We beat the best teams and we lose to the worst teams. And the Panthers are going to be a problem, man. If they can get some, the thing that concerns me about them, the receivers are so young. So I remember when we had Jameis, they were always blaming on the receivers. Receivers ran the wrong route. They didn't do that. So we all know what Jameis is about. He's about no risk and no biscuit. So
Kirby, appreciate the phone call, man.
Hey, great call. Yes, call back anytime, Kirby.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Appreciate TA, Kirby, and we had 2 other ones, Andrew and Rick and Greer, that both dropped off the line. We'll see if we can get them on tomorrow.
When we come back, Cole, let's listen to our conversation from earlier with Grayson Mann of TigerNet. Asked him a lot of deep, difficult questions when it comes to these Clemson Tigers. We'll play it back for you next. that happened, but there's not a whole lot of that to talk about. So I just want to get personal with Grayson, Mann, for a second, if I can, as we start this interview. How you holding up, Grayson?
I'm great. I woke up under a roof. The sun rose today.
Oh, you're pulling Dabo-isms, okay? Come on now.
All right.
Grayson, Mann of TigerNet.com, joins us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Grayson, is this the most needed bye week in college football right now? I mean, God, Clemson, nothing is clicking right for this team offensively, defensively, penalties, coaching, all of it seems to be just failing all at the same time. What's going on in this locker room? Are they still together? They talk about togetherness a lot, but it's obviously easy to be together when things are going well.
Yeah, it's like when you take that big test that you thought you were going to ace and you see a big fat 65 on there and you're like, man,
yeah,
I need a few weeks before the next unit so I can get ready. Got to get that grade back up. But certainly a very jarring start to the season. To just kind of answer your question about the locker room, I was able to chat with a few prospects that were brought into town for this weekend, and they said that the locker room was very connected. The display of caring was something that they noted. Whether you agree with that being displayed on the field is another question entirely. But it's a mess right now. And a lot of people that I've talked to for the last several days have said that it might be a necessary mess. It's one of those moments for Clemson where last several years, and you're getting it personal, so I might monologue here for a second, but Clemson's sort of been this car that you see driving down the highway, and you might notice some duct tape on a door or a mirror, and you're thinking, probably need to just let that car die at some point. Maybe take it in, trade it for whatever money you can get, and start over. For Clemson, feels like that's been the kind of program since Trevor Lawrence. Is they've added a couple pieces like Matt Luke. That's tape on the left side mirror. Tom Allen's tape on the door to make sure it's shut while the car is driving. I think on Syracuse, the engine finally died. And it's time for Dabo Swinney to go into the shop and see if he can buy a new one. I think the word that Clemson fans might have to accept now is it's time for a rebuild here in Clemson.
We're joined by Grayson, Mann, right here on the Fan Upstate after the 34-21 loss to Syracuse. The Tigers now 1-3 on the season. Grayson, you talk about rebuild. You talk about the engine failing. And obviously you, I, and others have heard from fans over the weekend and how disappointed they are. When you talk about not meeting expectations, that's one thing. When you talk about not meeting the standard, that's another thing. And a lot of times repercussions are felt because the standard is not met. Clemson's 1-3 this season. Still have plenty of games left. Do you expect any fallout, any repercussions internally because of this 1-3 start?
Dabo Swinney's never been one to make a dramatic change, but I do know it's been a pretty nuclear week and a half inside the building. And so there's been a lot of, I think tension is the right word, of this is just not steered off the course that I think anyone had expected. We've sat here in August and confidently said this could be a playoff team on paper. Yeah. And so it's jarring now that we're sitting here. It's September 22nd and the season's over.
Yeah.
Essentially, is the way you look at it. Is because Clemson's not going, man, can't wait to get to the Pop-Tarts Bowl. That would be a great year. If they're going to be, some of the projections I read this morning could put them in the Fenway Bowl. That's not exactly the standard that Clemson has set. And so obviously there's a lot of disappointment. But this also just could be who Clemson is. They're 8-7 in their last 15 Power 4 games. A lot of the peak of this decade, if you want to kind of erase the COVID year, was that last semblance of having an elite talent at quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, elite talent across the board. The peak of the last 4 years have been a 14-point playoff loss to Texas. So you talk about meeting standards. And I think we were all asking, if not this year, when? They're not close to what potentially could be that sort of mountaintop that we all envisioned them potentially trying to reach this year. So a lot of answers. We're going to speak to Dabo Swinney here in an hour. It's going to be really fascinating to see the tenor of how he sort of addresses this moving forward. He's got 2 weeks to basically digest this and see if they can reset it and get something positive in the building against North Carolina.
So, Grayson, to go back to your metaphor there about a car and buying a new car, in your mind, what does that mean? Because, in theory, Tom Allen is an elite defensive coordinator. We've seen him be elite before. In theory, Garrett Riley is an elite offensive coordinator. In theory, Dabo Swinney is an elite head coach who knows more football and has forgotten more football than we'll ever know. But at the end of the day, the players are the gas in the engine. And if the players aren't getting it done, were these guys just all overhyped and over-evaluated? Are we legitimately looking at a roster of 2 and 3 stars, or is there just like something that's not clicking? There's a clogged line somewhere.
I think it's a loaded question. There's a lot that needs to be fixed, and I don't think it was ever as simple as adding Tom Allen or adding a Garrett Riley. I think what we've seen through these seasons is the talent's certainly not there. I think that you have to sort of look at how Clemson recruits, and I do think this 26 class that they're bringing in has the potential to be special. There's a lot of elite talents, but particularly on the line of scrimmage that they're going to be bringing in. Can they retain them to December? That's going to be the question. I think it's got to start there. I know that the portal is sort of the trigger word for Clemson, and that's usually the point about Dabo Swinney doesn't understand NIL. I think that's been way overblown because Swinney did have to pay pretty expensive dollars to keep this roster that we all kind of expected. You bring in a guy like TJ Parker back, a guy like Peter Woods back, a third-year starter in Cade Klubnik.
Yeah.
That's an expensive trio. Add Antonio Williams, add all the other pieces, because other schools are calling, knocking down the door. So Swinney did the right thing in theory with his roster, but I think it's kind of the reset was going to be 2026 of, okay, Clemson does this in 2025. What now? I think you got to start by North Carolina. You got to start getting data points for 26 because I think Diesel, you can gather data for the next 8 games on a Christopher Vizina, a Gideon Davidson, the guys that you kind of have waiting in the wings, a Braden Jacobs, Easton. I know Easton Ware's out, but sort of those 2025 linemen that Matt Luke was able to bring in. Got to see what works and got to see what doesn't work and try to move forward. I don't view it as Clemson's all of a sudden going to bring in 3 stars and that's the best they can do. I think there's a philosophy shift, maybe a shift in staff. I don't like calling for jobs, but something's got to give, and I don't think it's one simple move. I think there's got to be several.
Grayson, do you think Dabo will speak on this question that I'm going to frame to you? You can answer the question and also give your thoughts on if you think Dabo would ever answer it. But I know Dabo is not part of the media, but at ACC kickoff, to your point, it was the general consensus that Clemson was, the favorite in the conference, that everybody was picking them, the Josh Pates of the world, everybody was picking them to win the national championship. We thought so as well. It wasn't like it was just Clemson media. The Clemson media was certainly leading the charge, and everybody felt like Clemson was going to be a player, a contender. And then a couple of, speed bumps, LSU, you didn't look great against Troy. Trying to keep the faith per se, and things just to our conversation points we've already talked about haven't gone that way. What do you think this year shows fans just in terms of preseason expectations in this new era of college football may not be what they once were?
Yeah, it's an interesting question of Swinney had called it rat poison a few weeks ago. And really it's a team that you can try to adjudicate it one way or the other, but it's a group that isn't used to this type of expectation. A Klubnik entered in 2022 when they had just lost 3 games for the first time in ages. This 2023 class had just entered, and it's sort of this tumultuous time where 3-2 losses. I mean, Clemson's had multiple losses each year since 2021 or 2020, even with back to the Notre Dame and Ohio State losses, but one of those came in the postseason. I mean, look at Florida State last year, Cole. I looked at it this morning for a story we're writing for TigerNet that'll drop, I think, tomorrow. Is Clemson's eerily similar to that 2024 Florida State team that was this preseason gem. Yeah. A lot of returning starters, Mike Norvell paying top dollar to keep these guys in town. You didn't feel great about the quarterback, but you felt DJ could maybe steer the ship at least on course, and it completely fell off the rails. And some of those numbers are eerily scary for Clemson fans. So preseason expectations are one thing, and then execution on the field is another. A lot of the AP poll numbers, it's fascinating to go back and look. A lot of the AP number ones, they change hands plenty of times. The AP poll top 25 in August looks very different to the AP poll top 25 in January, just because teams may have injuries. that result in deterioration of a season, there just may not be the right mix. So it's certainly a lesson this year in tempering expectations, or maybe kind of just looking at it through the weeds a little bit quicker. And I think we've discovered this with Clemson.
Grayson, you mentioned that press conference is not a press conference with Dabo here in about an hour. Given what happened last week at his regular press conference and that 13-minute diatribe, does Dabo Swinney owe Clemson fans an apology for last week's press conference, for treating fans like they're children, for scolding them, for scolding the media, creating narratives, all this stuff we've heard for the last 2 weeks? I mean, I'm not asking if you think we'll get it, but do you think Clemson fans deserve a Dabo Swinney mea culpa?
I think we got it on Saturday, if we're being completely honest. And it wasn't framed as he said it outright. He was sort of saying it without saying it, but there was that real visceral quote. And I thought Dabo, to his credit, I know Tuesday was sort of his last attempt at throwing the kitchen sink to try to rally the team. And so that was sort of him talking to the team through us, through that epic rant. Was really epic rant in that kind of way. Saturday was the first time that I've really seen that vulnerability, and someone that really it took a lot out of them on Saturday. I mean, the ESPN clip of him with Avion Terrell in tears went pretty viral, and he just talked about sort of the weight of responsibility that he feels. And he said he's hurting for the community and hurting for the fans. He says he knows the fans care, and that's what makes these results so disappointing. So I don't think Swinney would apologize for anything he says. That's never really in his style. But I think we really got it, Diesel, on Saturday. And so it's just kind of refresh. He's going to flush it, and we'll be moving on to the bye week. And I'm sure we'll ask plenty of questions about what he's seen on tape, and just sort of, I'd love to ask him how he characterized sort of the toughness on the line of scrimmage and how that has gone on both sides of the ball, because effort's been a big question mark with this team. So we got a lot of answers, and hopefully Swinney will answer them here in about 50 minutes.
Grayson, going back to that, because we talked to you on Monday of last week. The presser was Tuesday. We hadn't talked to you since until today. We obviously know what happened on Saturday with Syracuse. You said talking to his team through the media. This is kind of a two-part question. Number one, do you believe that's what Dabo was trying to do? And if so, what does his past success, this is just a curiosity question, trying to play devil's advocate. What does his past success at this program have to do with getting the team fired up and motivated to go beat Syracuse? How does that correlate?
I think it's sort of just defending the program that you've chosen to go to in that sense. And I really felt like a fired up Dabo, because the question was, what play would he like back against Georgia Tech? And then he kind of went off the rails. But I think it was sort of the same thing with Brian Kelly at LSU when he was asked what's wrong with the offense. And he sort of goes on this tangent about, I think they do it in different ways, but I'm sure there was a meeting Tuesday or Wednesday, and he's like, guys, I got your back. This program, you guys are going to be responsible for getting us out of this hole. We're going to make this run. It's going to be something incredible. And you know why? Because we've done this before. We have rallied before. And so Swinney's just reciting those talking points to say to the guys that are sitting there looking for answers, there's something and there's proof in the pudding there. So that's what I think he mainly was doing. Cole, to answer your question, I think it's really fascinating that Tuesday presser was then followed up by Saturday, where it looked like the team was out of gas from play one, and Syracuse did just about whatever they wanted. And it really could have been a lot more had Steve Angeli not gone down with the Achilles injury. It was just awful to see, because he looked like he was primed for a great season with that Syracuse offense. So we'll see how that develops on that front. But yeah, that Swinney's presser paired with that Syracuse loss, obviously lots of national attention. Not a lot of people would be watching a 1-2 football team if it wasn't Clemson slapped on the logo based on how they've played. And it all kind of came crashing down. And that's why I kind of said the engine died on Saturday. That was sort of their last attempt. And a 34-21 loss that was a lot more lopsided than the score would indicate. That's just kind of the nail in the coffin.
Find him on Twitter at Gray_Mann21. That's man with 2 N's. I asked this question of Matt Smith of Sports Talk Media Network on Friday. How long, if Cade continues to play mediocre football, does Dabo Swinney stick with Cade Klubnik? We know that loyalty is a huge thing of who Dabo is, but we've also seen him bench multiple starters in a row for their backups. Kelly for DJ, DJ for Cade. Are we headed for number 3 here?
I think that it should be. The decision should have been made a long time ago, if we're being completely honest here. But the problem is he's one of your highest paid guys on the university, not just on the football team. So there's that aspect of the donor part of it, the politics that comes with NIL of benching your millionaire quarterback after 4 games. Essentially is waving the white flag on the season, even though it's over based on the results that we've gotten. I keep saying this, and I know Sweeney's not one to make this kind of move, but I do think it would be in the program's best interest to see what Christopher Vezina can give you in the next 8 games. Provide yourself some data. I think fans will feel a lot better in December once the season's over of, I know how this could look against LSU in Baton Rouge versus what the heck are we going to talk about for 6 months is how is this going to look for game 1, first career start for Christopher Vezina, a guy that hasn't necessarily, I guess, the reputation or the development has not been the most pleasant, hasn't developed the greatest. So you get 8 games, and at the very least you have an answer there. Because a lot of NFL teams, they'll start their rookie. Take a look at Michael Penix right now for the Falcons. 3 starts at the end of the year, closes it out, and now 6 starts in, it does not look good. And so I think if you're a Clemson fan, you love some data.
Based on what you just said, what do you think are the odds now that Dabo Sweeney goes to the portal for a quarterback going into next season? Vezina's been around for a while. If you don't feel good about him, I mean, are you willing to go through that for another season without at least bringing in someone?
I think the option, the likelihood increases. And now, again, this could predicate on, let's say Vezina starts against Boston College, and for 7 games, he's dynamite. He's on fire. He can't be stopped. And then at that point, Sweeney's probably going to go, 17's our guy. We're going to roll with him. But on the other hand, if you don't start him and you've seen enough data and practice to where you're not very confident, I've always said this for years. This was even before the wheels fell off on this season, that Sweeney it would be in his best interest to bring in a portal quarterback, even if it's not some bona fide superstar. Just bring in some more competition. I like what Tate Reynolds can bring to Clemson. I just don't think it's going to be ready game 1 for 2026.
legacybox.com/value. Tonight, expect.
Well, Monday Night Football, Diesel, is rapidly approaching. Just over an hour from now, we'll be getting set to kick off. And, sometimes, as long as the NFL season is, sometimes we get to the point in the season where some of these Monday night games or Thursday night games aren't good. But, man, tonight, are you kidding me? The Detroit Lions, week one, they didn't look great. Last week, they put up 1 million points against Week 1 looked great, Baltimore Ravens. Last week, not so great. 1-1 going at it tonight. I love the ramifications for this, Diesel. By the way, Baltimore favored by 4.5. Falling to 1-2 in the NFL, it's not like damning that so detrimental to where you can't recover. But, man, this game tonight has huge ramifications. One of these teams is going to be 1-2 and clawing their way back into the division race.
Yeah, it's a long way up, but hey, all you got to do is make the playoffs. If you're in the playoffs, you have a chance to go win the whole thing. You may have a tougher road, but at least you're in. I mean, it's not easy for the Ravens. They still have, Lions coming up tonight on the road at the Chiefs. The Bears, absolutely pantsed your Cowboys.
Bad.
The Browns can suddenly win a game.
Yeah.
They don't have a murderer's row schedule. They kind of have ebbs and flows throughout the season, but it's certainly not easy.
I think tonight's going to be a lot of fun, man. Again, Baltimore is favored at home by 4.5. You look at that and think, okay, home field advantage. You take away 3. Vegas really, Diesel, has this Baltimore team tonight favored by like a point and a half. That's just how close they expect this one to be. I don't love the Detroit Lions. I don't love Jared Goff. I think they will miss Ben Johnson. But tonight, you're the only game on, prime time. I think this is going to be an absolute heck of a football game. If we have to pick in these remaining 30 seconds, picking tonight's game, Baltimore hosting Detroit, Diesel, picking against the spread. I'm going to throw one more at you just to make it tough on you. 4.5 points. Who covers the spread tonight, Baltimore or Detroit?
I think Baltimore wins by a touchdown. So win and cover.
Win and cover?
Win and cover.
I'm going to go win and cover as well. I think they win by 5 or 6, maybe a touchdown. Give me the Ravens tonight.